What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Anyo, Naruto-kun, what happens if our plan doesn't work? Hinata said quietly. Which part of the plan, the Mizuki part or the whole plan? Naruto said while scanning for any possible eavesdroppers. The Mizuki part, Hinata replied. It will work, replied Naruto. The bastard is too power-hungry for his own good. Besides, here he comes now. Seeing Naruto and Hinata sitting alone by the swing, Mizuki began to walk over to them with a barely concealed smirk on his face. This is perfect. Not only did the demon boy fail but the Hyuga heiress did as well. I will be able to slaughter the demon brat, get the scroll of sealing for Lord Orochimaru, and sell the Hyuga brat as a slave to the cloud. I'll be rich, and in good favor with my master. It's a win-win-win situation. Thinking all of this as he sauntered over to the failures, he got up to them and got their attention. Don't you two look rather down in the dumps? Mizuki asked. I have just the thing that will cheer you two up. But you have to promise not to tell anyone or else I won't help you. What could you possibly have that could cheer us up, Mizuki-sensei? Asked Naruto. The only thing that would cheer us up is another way to graduate. But we all know that that isn't possible. But that is where you happen to be wrong, Naruto. There is another way you can pass. Seeing Naruto and Hinata's faces brighten up, he thought to himself, they fell for it hook, line, and sinker. He. Now here is what you two have to do. Mizuki proceeded to explain the location of the scroll of sealing and where to bring it when they got it. All you two have to do is learn one jutsu from the scroll without getting caught by anyone, and you'll be genin. But remember, if you tell anyone about this then our deal will be void. Seeing Naruto and Hinata nod in affirmative, Mizuki left to go back home. A few hours later within a forest. Hey, stealing this scroll from the old man was a piece of cake, right Hinata? I mean come on, he got knocked out from one shot of my Oiroke no Jutsu. While I would agree that a scroll of this importance should be better protected, I will have to ask you to never use that jutsu again. Okay Naruto-kun? Replied Hinata sweetly. Sure thing Hinata-chan. Said Naruto nervously. Damn, she can be really scary. Now while I know that stealing the scroll was just part of our plan to expose Mizuki, I don't see why we can't use this scroll to help us learn, so let's learn some jutsus. Oh, I know, I can use this cool new scroll copying Fuinjutsu that I learned from this book that I borrowed from the advanced ninja portion of the library. That way we can spend our time looking at it. That's a great idea Naruto-kun. Naruto placed the scroll on the ground, then took some ink, a brush, and some paper out of his pouch and proceeded to neatly write an intricate seal on the piece of paper. When he finished he placed the paper on the scroll and said, Fuinjutsu, scroll copying seal. Black markings erupted from the paper and covered the scroll before returning to the piece of paper. With that done Naruto removed the slip of paper and carefully folded it before placing it in his pouch. Done. Now we just have to get a blank scroll or scrolls and activate the seal and it will copy as much of the original onto the new scroll that will fit. Said Naruto triumphantly. Hinata smiled and said, now how about we look for anything cool in the scroll before Mizuki gets here. Alright, they both sat down next to each other in between some tree roots and opened up the scroll. The first item listed there caught their interests. The cage bunshin. I never knew that it was a Jonin level technique. Sensei failed to mention that when he taught us. Said Naruto as he rambled on his thoughts. Well maybe he didn't want us to get a big head like your mask would obviously do if he had learned it. Replied Hinata with a cute giggle. Speaking of sensei, he hasn't spoken to either of us for a while now. What do you think he is doing Naruto-kun? Asked Hinata. Knowing him he's been spending his time sleeping. Although I do have to wonder when he will let us drop the special henge that he made us put up. It is so annoying not being able to walk in our actual bodies. Replied Naruto with a hint of annoyance in his voice. While I agree with you about the henge Naruto-kun, you do have to realize that it masks other things besides our appearance. If we didn't have his special henge, who knows what sort of trouble you and me would get into. Said Hinata with another giggle at the end. Although I do have to imagine that he will let us put it down soon since we are unmasking ourselves today. Naruto heard rustling in some nearby bushes and quickly told Hinata to be quiet. They were expecting Mizuki to come out of the bushes, but surprisingly Iruka popped out instead. "Naruto, Hinata, you have no idea how much trouble you two are in," screamed Iruka. "Trouble? What do you mean, Iruka-sensei? We got the scroll and learned a jutsu from it, doesn't that mean that we passed?" questioned Naruto. "Who told you that if you stole the scroll and learned a jutsu that you would pass?" asked Iruka carefully. Suddenly there was a whistling noise as 4 shuriken shot out of a nearby bush aimed directly at Naruto. Naruto braced for impact as the shuriken came closer, but when he heard the noise of metal piercing flesh he felt no pain. Opening his eyes he saw Iruka leaning over him with blood dribbling down his face and 4 shuriken sticking out his back. "That would be me," said Mizuki evilly. "I was the one who told them to steal the scroll and to come here under the illusion that they would become genin. I was the one who also rigged all of Naruto's tests so that they would be Chunin level questions. I also was the one who punished Naruto for things he didn't even do. Do you want to know why, Naruto? Why I did these horrible things to you? Why everybody hates you? It's quite simply it's because you can't, Mizuki, it's against the law to tell him," yelled Iruka desperately. Ignoring Iruka, Mizuki continued, "Because you are the 9-tailed demon fox." Dead silence filled the air. Suddenly Mizuki started laughing manically. "Hee hee hee, ha 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 ha, too stunned to move after being told what you actually are. That's a joke. You really are pathetic, demon. I'm going to enjoy slaughtering you and selling your whore of a Hyuga to the cloud. There is no telling what they will do to her body though. Ha. Suddenly a huge amount of killing intent started rolling off of Naruto. Feeling it, Mizuki started to unconsciously sweat. Inside Naruto's and Hinata's head they heard a voice which said, "I've had enough of that wimp's pathetic laughter. Destroy him but keep him alive. I'm sure your Hokage will want to have a few words with him. You shouldn't need my help." They both replied in their heads, "Hi, sensei." The killing intent coming off Naruto suddenly doubled in amount, and added on top of it Hinata started pouring out her own, matching the level of Naruto's. Mizuki started to really sweat as he felt their combined killing intents bury him. How is this possible? The demon I can imagine, but this little girl is matching his killing intent with no effort. Wasn't this girl the shy little Hyuga brat who refused to hurt a fly? What the hell is going on? The killing intent suddenly stopped and Mizuki breathed in a huge gulp of air. He had been unconsciously holding his breath. "You know, you really should keep your mouth shut, you idiot. I can take whatever insults or hatred people have towards me. I'm used to that. However, the moment you insult my friends, that is the moment that you've signed your own death warrant. And you didn't just insult one of my friends. You insulted and threatened my Hinata-chan. Normally that alone is warrant enough for your instant death, but I have a better idea. Hinata-chan and I are going to destroy your body, but we will keep you alive. Then we will let the interrogation and torture department destroy your mind. Ironically, me and Ibiki are actually pretty close after I helped him with a prisoner that he couldn't crack. So I'm sure he will be extra nice to you after he hears what you have done to me," said Naruto in a pitiless voice. "As if 2 academy students could possibly beat me," screamed Mizuki. Hinata finally spoke up and grimly said, "Underestimating us will be one of the last things you will ever do." With that, Hinata and Naruto stood side by side and made a familiar hand sign. Tajuu Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Smoke filled the forest, and when it cleared there stood 500 copies of Naruto and 500 copies of Hinata. Mizuki fell over in fear. The clones pounced. Mizuki's screams could be heard throughout the forest. With a huge rush of smoke, all of Naruto and Hinata's clones dispelled. Lying bloodied and beaten on the ground was the crippled form of Mizuki. The only way to tell that it was in fact Mizuki was to look at the few spots of his hair that were not covered in blood. Satisfied with a job well done, Naruto and Hinata walked over to Iruka, helped him up and slung him over their shoulders. They started to trudge back to the village in silence when Iruka spoke up. "So I take it that you two are hiding something rather large?" he asked the young kids. Taking his free hand and rubbing the back of his head in a nervous gesture, Naruto said, "You caught us, Iruka-sensei. But we won't tell you until after we tell the old man. But I promise that we will tell you what the old man says we can safely tell you after we get his permission." "Fine, but before you two go to talk to the Hokage, can you help me get to the hospital first?" These wounds are not going to heal themselves. That's fine, Iruka-sensei. Your safety takes priority. Just then there was the whooshing of air as several members of the Anbu appeared, followed by the Hokage himself. Ah, Naruto, just the boy I was hoping to see. Would you care to explain why you stole the scroll of sealing and why Iruka has 4 shuriken in his back? Asked the Hokage with an edge in his voice. Sure thing, old man. Several Anbu sweat dropped upon hearing the way he referred to the Hokage. But first we have to get Iruka-sensei to the hospital, and if we are going to tell you anything it will be just you, me, and Hinata with several security seals in place. Said Naruto cheerfully. Very well. Cat, board, take Iruka off their hands and get him to the hospital. Hi, Hokage-sama, they dutifully replied. They shifted Iruka onto their shoulders and proceeded to shunshin away. Freed of their burden, Naruto and Hinata stretched out their backs and got a few satisfying cracks. Hirazen's eyes widen as they, no, she did so. They shy heir to the Hyuga clan just cracked her back in public, and in front of the Hokage no less. Hinata, seeing his expression, giggled and said, would you really think that I'm that shy little girl who can't stand up to anything? No, I'm so much more than that. But we will talk about that later when there are seals in place. Snapping out of his shocked state, the Hokage cleared his throat and said, well, we should hurry up then. I am now very curious as to what you two have to say to me. With that they quickened their pace to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower, Hokage's room, 5 minutes later. Alright, we are here, so what is it that you? Seals first, questions later, old man. Naruto and Hinata then proceeded to go quickly through several hand signs and said, Fuinjutsu, perfect sound barrier, and Fuinjutsu, perfect sight barrier. The walls of the room glowed with markings as the 2 jutsus took effect. The Hokage was flabbergasted. He had just watched 2 academy students use an A-rank Fuinjutsu each. Would you care to explain how you two just used an A-rank jutsu? The Hokage asked in a dangerous voice. Sure, our sensei taught it to us for pretty much this exact reason. Replied Naruto. You two have a sensei? Who? Everybody knows that private tutoring of academy students is not allowed unless they are within the same clan. If this person is someone in the Leaf Village, they will be severely punished. The Hokage then noticed something that was a bit off between the two of them, something that he only noticed because he was practically interrogating them with his gaze. Also, you two can drop the henge. I know that you two are hiding under one. Hearing this, Naruto started clapping and laughed. Wow, old man, you really are worthy of the title, God of Shinobi. To be able to see through something that not even the whole Hyuga clan's Byakugan could see through. You really are amazing, old man. Naruto turned to face Hinata and asked, well, Hina-chan, are you ready for the first mask to fall? Hi, Ruto-kun. I believe that we can trust the Hokage with our secrets. Answered Hinata. At this they both made a hand seal and said, Kai, before exploding in a puff of smoke. As the smoke cleared, what the Hokage saw left him completely speechless. Standing in front of him were Naruto and Hinata wrapped up in a passionate kiss. But that was not what surprised him. What surprised him was how different they looked. The people kissing in front of him were not 13. They both had the bodies of 18-year-olds. Naruto was wearing his Shippuden jacket unzipped with a tight black shirt that showed off his well-defined muscles. He wore black pants that were similar to what the Anbu wore along with the standard black ninja shoes. His hair was a little longer than his younger selves and it made him look like a younger Minato Namikaze. He wore black Anbu gauntlets that had an orange plate instead of the standard gray. Finally, he had a Hite 8 that had the kanji for fox on it that was secured around his forehead by a long piece of black cloth. Looking over to Hinata, the Hokage was hard-pressed to not get a nosebleed. Only years of training by being a closet pervert allowed him to accomplish this feat. Hinata was wearing dark blue pants that clung nicely to her lower body. She wore similar shoes to Naruto, only that hers were white. She also wore a very low-cut lavender tank top that revealed a great deal of her bust, which the Hokage estimated was easily in the E-cup range. Pervert powers activate. She also had a necklace that ended in a small red fox with 9 tails. To finish off her outfit, she had a Hite 8 that also had the kanji for fox on it that was secured around her neck by a piece of lavender cloth. But an interesting thing about her is that she had a tattoo of a 9-tailed fox that looked like it was laying on the top of her left. The fox's tails wrapped along the underside of her and continued to the top of her. They ended with the white tips of the tails near the center of her. Naruto and Hinata had been kissing all this time while Hiruzen observed their new features, but they finally broke apart to get some much-needed air. Turning to the Hokage, Naruto grinned and asked, "Any questions?" Which elicited a giggle from Hinata. "Just one." "How?" answered the old man. "That's a fun one, since we get to tell you the whole story, and hopefully that will answer any other questions that might come up. Now where to begin? Ah, yes, it was 8 years ago on my birthday, October 10th. Flashback no jutsu. Get back here, you demon. Die, you demon scum. You'll pay for what you have done, you demon bastard." These shouts and similar ones followed Naruto as he raced through the streets of Konoha to try and escape the mob that was chasing him. He turned a corner into an alleyway, then suddenly slammed into someone on accident. This allowed the mob to catch up. They picked him up and slammed him against the wall. "Now that we have you, we are going to make you pay for what you have done. Look, you just assaulted the Hyuga heiress, and in my opinion that deserves a death sentence. Who knows, maybe the Hyuga clan will be so grateful that they will pay me for saving her. Anyways, now you die." The man pulled out a knife and was about to thrust it into Naruto's throat when suddenly his arm went limp and he dropped his knife onto his foot. He jumped back and screamed in pain, releasing Naruto. He looked up to see the Hyuga heiress standing in front on Naruto in a rudimentary Jiyuken stance. "You'll pay for that, you little bitch." Pulling his knife out of his foot, he turned his attention onto Hinata and advanced towards her. She was frozen in fear and couldn't do anything. She turned to ask Naruto for help, but he was just standing there with a glazed look in his eyes. She ran over to him and started begging him to help her, but she got no response. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto landed with a large splash into what appeared to be a sewer system. He got up and frowned at his soaked clothes before looking around. "Where am I?" he asked himself. The last thing he remembered was the cute girl with lavender eyes saving his life, and then suddenly he was here. "You are in your mind, kid," answered a loud and dark voice. Naruto whipped around and saw that he was standing in front of a huge cage. Inside the cage he saw a gigantic fox with 9 tails that lazily flicked about. "My mind? How is that possible? And if so, why the hell do I have a giant furball in here with me?" "Giant furball? Is that what you think I am? I ought to destroy you, you insignificant whelp. How dare you insult me? I am the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. Yeah, I know who you are, but that doesn't explain why you are in my mind though. Unless you got sealed in here by someone. If that is what happened, then suddenly my life makes a whole lot more sense. Well, the kid is smarter than he looks, HMMPH. Yes, you are right. I did get sealed in here by the Yondaime Hokage, and yes, I am the sole reason why your life has been miserable. Do you hate me for that? Do you hate me for making your life shit? Do I hate you? Why would I hate you? My life may not be great, but at least I'm not some stuck-up prick who thinks that they own the world. So no, I don't hate you. In fact, I am glad that you are stuck inside of me because it has taught me humility and made me stronger." Suddenly there was a loud booming noise that repeatedly reverberated through the sewer. It took Naruto a moment to realize that that noise was actually the Kyuubi laughing. "Ha ha 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 ha, you are funny, kid, I'll give you that. And you have spunk too. I like that. How about I make you a deal, kid? Right now in the world, that cute girl who saved your life is about to get skewered. If you remove this god-forsaken seal, I'll give you the power to save her life, and I promise not to take over your body or anything like that. Demons can't break promises. All I ask for in return is that you summon me to your world every so often, and as an added bonus, I'll train you to become a ninja. How does that sound? You better act quickly before the girl gets impaled." "That deal sounds fine to me. I just have one question. What's that, kid? What is your real name?" "My real name? Ha 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 ha, I really like you, kid. It's Kurama. Yours?" "Naruto." With that, Naruto jumped up to the seal, grabbed it, but then a hand grabbed his, stopping him. "Sorry whoever you are, but I have a life I need to save." Saying this, Naruto shook the hand off and ripped the seal completely off. Real world. The explosion of chakra that happened could be felt throughout Konoha. People who knew what this chakra was thought that the world was ending. But as quickly as the explosion came, it left. Anbu raced to where the epicenter of the chakra explosion was, and what they found there was a horror scene. Bits of human bodies were everywhere, and the alleyway was drenched in blood. Amazingly, none of the surrounding buildings were harmed by the explosion. There was no evidence of who had done this since there were no survivors. Meanwhile, at the field on top of the Yondaimi's head, two people were washing their clothes in a stream, trying their best to remove all the blood that had soaked into it. "Hey, what's your name? I would like to know the name of the cute girl that I saved." "Anyo, it's Hinata, Hinata Hyuga." "Anyo, are those real?" Hinata had been watching them for some time and she needed to know if they were real. What was she referring to? Why the 9 red with blonde tips foxtails and the 2 similarly colored fox ears that Naruto now had on his body? "Oh, these? Yeah, I guess they are real. I mean, I can feel stuff that they touch." "Can I touch them?" Hinata asked shyly. "Sure, I don't see why not." Hinata eat with joy and pretty much tackled the boy and started rubbing his tails, not caring that both of them were currently naked. As soon as she started rubbing his tails, a deep rumbling noise came out from the base of Naruto's throat. Hearing this noise come from his throat caused him to blush deeply. "You purr too? You're the best boy ever," stated Hinata with joy, causing Naruto to blush even deeper. "I only wish that I could have tails like you." "How did you even get them?" asked Hinata. Naruto proceeded to tell Hinata of what happened in his mind, and when he finished, Hinata was looking at him with stars in her eyes. "You made a deal with the great Kyuubi no Kitsune. But I guess if that is the only way to get tails, then I will never get them," Hinata stated dejectedly. Suddenly a voice spoke inside Naruto's head and said, "Kit, tell her that there is another way for her to get tails. Ask if she is willing to be marked as your mate. That will transform her like I transformed you when I merged with you. I like this girl. She wasn't bothered at all by the slaughter that happened in front of her and she wants to have tails like you, without caring about the consequences of being seen with tails. She is definitely a keeper and that is the only reason I have brought this up to you. I will relay the drawbacks of doing this through you when you explain this to her," said Kurama. "Hinata-chan, Kurama told me to tell you that there is another way to get tails, but it comes with drawbacks." "There is. Please tell me about this other way," demanded Hinata. Naruto proceeded to explain the perks and drawbacks of being marked as a mate to a Kitsune Hanyu. With that done, he said, "I'll give you some time too." "I'll do it," Hinata said decisively. What? Hinata rolled her lavender eyes and said, "I said that I'll do it. Mark me as your mate, Naruto-kun. I will never meet another person like you and I want to be with you and like you forever." "Oh, okay, if you say so." Naruto leaned down in front of Hinata and bit down into her soft flesh right above where her would develop. Naruto then injected a great deal of Kurama's chakra into her through the bite and stepped back. He watched in shock as a tattoo of a 9-tailed fox was burned onto her skin surrounding the bite mark. Then both of their chakras exploded around them, with Naruto's being orange-colored and Hinata's being lavender-colored. Their bodies began to feel really weird all of a sudden and they were forced to shut their eyes. Then their chakra finally receded and they opened their eyes. They gasped at what they saw before them. They no longer saw their 5-year-old bodies, and instead saw the bodies of their 18-year-old selves. Then their 18-year-old selves started producing what they produce best. Hormones. And lots of them. Feeling this, they saw each other in a completely new light. Hina-chan, Ruto-kun. They stepped up to each other and engaged in a very passionate kiss. Disengaging from their first kiss, Naruto and Hinata stood there gasping for much-needed air. Their tails, without them knowing, had wrapped around each other. They stood there for a minute gazing into each other's eyes until Naruto finally broke the silence. "That was, amazing," answered Hinata for him. Yeah. Anyways, Kurama never said anything about us getting older. I wonder why we did. Maybe you should ask him about it. I know what you're going to ask me, I'm not deaf. And as for your answer, no, I am not sure as to why it happened. But it did happen and I've given you the knowledge to be competent 18-year-old humans," said Kurama as his voice ran through Naruto's head. "What was that voice?" asked Hinata. "You heard him?" replied Naruto with surprise evident in his voice. "Yes, she can hear me now that she's your mate. Anyways, on to more important matters. Like the fact that you are both 18 with hormones running rampant throughout your bodies. We need to do something about that or else you two will end up doing things together that will be looked down upon. Especially if you two choose to henge back into your 5-year-old selves, which is what I would recommend for the time being. So what I propose is that I put a special Kitsune henge on you two for as long as you intend to keep your secret from everyone else. This henge will mimic what your bodies would actually go through as they age from your actual age until you release it. It will take little to nothing from your chakra reserves and you won't have to worry about focusing to keep it up. To better hide you two, it will come up with a false persona that you two will be able to use to further keep people from getting suspicious about what you actually are. Does this sound acceptable? Kurama finally asked. I suppose so, but will we be able to revert back to our actual bodies when we are alone? Asked Naruto. I suppose I will let you two do that, but since I am in control of it I will only put it down when I know that you two are truly alone with no chance of being interrupted. That's good, I can feel that I will miss having my tails already. Said Hinata. Okay, since that's cleared I will use the jutsu now. Demonic arts. Kitsune mask. With that said, Naruto and Hinata were engulfed in two big clouds of smoke, and when it cleared they were back to their 5-year-old selves. I knew it, I miss my tails already. Said Hinata sadly. Quit complaining. Anyways, I told the kid here that I would train him. Since you're his mate, I guess I had to train you too. I will come up with a training schedule for you two to follow tomorrow. In the meantime, you two should probably hurry back home, especially you, Vixen. Knowing your family, I would say be prepared for the worst, as they won't like the fact that you have been gone so long without them knowing exactly where you are. And remember, just follow the way your mask acts and you will be fine. Also Vixen, you don't need to worry about that weak seal that they use on your family anymore. You are immune to such a weak seal. If they try and brand you with it, will be recast upon whoever is trying to place it on you. Hi, thank you Kurama-sensei. With that, Hinata turned and picked up her mostly clean clothes and put them on. Saying one last goodbye to Naruto, she left to go home. Well kid, I guess you should go home too. It's been a long day and you need a good rest. Hi, Kurama-sensei. Kurama-sensei. I could get used to this. Flashback no jutsu, Kai. And that's how it went, old man. We followed the masks that we were given to us and we lived our lives until this point. The only change was that Hina-chan and I would go train with Kurama-sensei every time we were able to get together. Concluded Naruto. Well, that is quite the story, but you said you have tails, why don't you currently have them? Asked Hiruzen. With a giggle, Hinata said, for the same reason that we didn't have them before, we are still under a henge. Naruto and Hinata nodded to each other and they made a hand sign and said, Kai. Smoke billowed off of them once again, and after clearing there stood Naruto and Hinata in their full Hanyu glory. Well, I must say that certainly is something that I have never seen before. Now on to more recent business. What exactly happened tonight with the Scroll of Seals? And for that matter, why did you two fail the academy test when quite clearly you two are powerful enough to be genin? Naruto proceeded to explain that night's events but omitted the fact that he copied the Scroll of Seals. As to why Hina-chan and I failed, we did on purpose so that Mizuki would approach us. We always knew that Mizuki was a power-hungry and manipulative bastard, so we figured that he would use downtrodden academy failures to do his dirty work for him. And who better to do it than us? He always thought of me as a demon, so he could care less if I died on his little mission, and I bet that he was just going to sell Hina-chan to the cloud for some quick cash. Explained Naruto. That seems like a plausible explanation, but to risk your becoming ninja on capturing one traitor? That is the part that I don't fully understand. Well, you see, old man, if I am to become Hokage someday, I need to be self-sacrificing for the good of the village and its people. If I was able to catch even one traitor for the good of the village, at the cost of my becoming a ninja, I would gladly do it. As would Hina-chan, explained Naruto once more. Upon hearing this, Hiruzen chuckled and said, the will of fire burns brightly within you too. I believe that you will make a great Hokage one day, Naruto. Thank you very much, old man. Before we go, there are two things that I would like to ask for. First is that I be placed on a team with just Hinata and with no sensei, since our sensei lives inside of us. That is acceptable, as the previous teams had been made without you two in them since you had failed. What is your second request? Taking a deep breath, Naruto said, second is that I would like to claim my rightful inheritance of the Namikaze clan estate and all belongings connected to it, as well as any last letters that my mother and father left for me. Upon hearing this, Hiruzen's pipe clattered onto his desk and his jaw dropped with only one word on his lips. How? Examining Hiruzen's shocked expression caused Naruto and Hinata to burst out into laughter. His expression was absolutely priceless. Geez, you should see you face old man, stated Naruto through his laughter. A.N. For those One Piece fans out there, Hiruzen's face looks like what Enel looked like after he first tried to use El Thor on Luffy when they first got to the arc Maxim. I love that face, it's hilarious. Regaining control of his expression, Hiruzen cleared his throat and asked, "So how do you two know of an SSS class ranked secret that very few people have the privilege of knowing about?" "It's simple, old man, we both met him," stated Naruto. "Impossible. He's been dead since you were born," said Hiruzen. "That may be true, Hokage-sama, but you know that Yondaime-sama was an absolute genius when it came to seals," stated Hinata. "So what are you just saying, that he sealed part of himself away so that he could talk to you when you grew up?" "That's impossible. That's actually exactly what happened, old man. My father sealed part of himself into the seal that he used to seal Kurama, as a failsafe." "A failsafe for what?" asked Hiruzen. "A failsafe for if the seal was ever to be ripped off or break," answered Naruto. "I see, so I take it that you met him when you were about to rip off the seal the first time?" "Actually no, I was in a rush so I sort of ignored him at that time. He did try to stop me though, but I was too preoccupied with saving Hina-chan's life." "So when did you meet him if not then?" "It was a few days after the event in Hina-chan and I met at a secret spot so we could begin our training." Flashback no jutsu. Alright you two, I hope you bought new clothes for your 18-year-old selves, because what you are currently wearing will be ripped to shreds if I turn you back right now. Kurama's voice echoed through the two mates' minds. "Hi, Kurama-sensei, we have both bought new clothes for our new bodies. We have also been working on speaking to each other through the mind link that we now have," replied Hinata in her head. "Good, now strip so that we may begin." Hinata and Naruto stripped their clothes off and Kurama released the henge. With two loud puffs, Naruto and Hinata were back to their Hanyu selves and they immediately rushed towards each other and kissed deeply. Kurama rolled his metaphorical eyes and thought, "Humans and their damn hormones. Enough of that you two. Get dressed in your new clothes so that we may begin your training." Naruto and Hinata looked a bit depressed but said, "Fine, Kurama-sensei." They both got dressed and admired each other's new outfits. Naruto couldn't help but stare at the large amount of cleavage that Hinata was showing off in her lavender tank top. Hinata on the other hand couldn't help but stare at the muscles that Naruto was showing through his black shirt. "I know that we have seen each other naked before, but I have to say Hina-chan, you look really damn why in that outfit," stated Naruto, who was still staring at Hinata's cleavage. "You don't look half bad yourself, Ruto-kun," Hinata replied teasingly. "Alright, snap out of it you two. Especially you Kit. Ever since she put that shirt on you've been in some sort of trance, staring at your mate's ass," Kurama said with annoyance laced in his voice. Kit. Naruto snapped the hell out of it. Kurama roared. "Who? What? When? Where? How? Finally I have your attention. I'm going to need you to summon me to your world so that we can begin. To perform the summoning jutsu you need a blood sacrifice. So just bite your thumb and then perform the hand signs of boar, dog, bird, monkey, and then ram and slam your palm into the ground. I am a bit unique as I am within you so you won't need to use any chakra to summon me." Nodding at Kurama's instructions, Naruto bit his thumb, made the seals, and slammed his palm into the ground. Kachiyose no jutsu. The seals spread across the ground and there was a large puff of smoke. When the smoke cleared there were 3 people standing there when they hadn't been standing there before. The first was a tall and well-built man with a pitch-black kimono that had an orange flame pattern that wrapped around the kimono. He had long spiky orange hair that reached down to his lower back. Picture Madara's hairstyle but the color of Kurama's fur. He had 6 whisker marks, 3 on each cheek. The most striking thing about him though, was his 9 orange tails with white tips that flailed lazily about. If you looked closely at the top of his head, you would see the tips of 2 fox ears sticking out of his hair. You could tell just by standing around this man that he was extremely powerful and not someone that you would want to mess with. The way he held his body demanded authority and the aura that was coming off of this man would make the weak grovel at his knees. This man was the human form of the great Kyuubi no Kitsune, Kurama. The second man was a tall, lithe man with a mess of untamable blonde hair, and the most piercing blue eyes that anyone had ever seen. He had a leaf hite 8 around his forehead and wore the standard Jonin outfit. On top of that outfit he wore a long white haori that had a flame pattern skirting the bottom and it had the kanji for Yondaime Hokage printed in black on its back. This man oozed calm confidence and his aura would cause people to relax around him. This man was the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The next person was a woman with long, beautiful red hair and deep violet eyes. She was wearing a solid dark blue kimono with white whirlpool designs along the sleeves and back. She had a very interesting aura. At some points it would be as calm and cool as Minato's, but it had a nasty habit of switching to an aura of dominance that rivaled Kurama's whenever she got angry or if someone said the wrong thing. This woman was Minato's loving wife, Kushina Uzumaki. "I know that's Kurama-sensei by the tails," whispered Hinata to Naruto, "but that person looks like the Yondaime Hokage. I have no clue who the woman is though." Meanwhile, Kurama was about to speak up to begin their training when Kushina shot him a death glare that made even him shudder. "Fine, you can talk to him first," Kurama grumbled, "but don't take too long. We have a lot of training to do and not too much time to do it." Hearing this, Kushina and Minato took a step towards Naruto with a smile on their faces. Do we know each other? I can't help but feel that you two are familiar somehow, but I can't quite put my finger on it," asked Naruto. Kushina suddenly smashed her fist down on Naruto's skull, making a large clong noise. Hinata was about to jump in and help Naruto when Kushina enveloped Naruto in a large hug and said, "Do we know you?" "Of course we know you. We are your parents Tt Ebane. I'm your mom, Kushina Uzumaki, and this amazing man is your father, Minato Namikaze." "My parents? I have parents?" asked Naruto in shock. "Of course you have parents, sweetie. What did you think that you suddenly popped into existence?" remarked Kushina. "I have parents," repeated Naruto. "I have parents," he repeated again, excitedly. Suddenly Naruto broke down and started to cry. Hinata immediately jumped next to him and started to console him. "What's wrong, Ruto-kun?" she asked quietly. "There's nothing wrong, Hina-chan. It's just that I'm so happy that I have actual parents. That's something that I've wanted my entire life. And to think that my dad is the fourth Hokage. These aren't tears of sadness, Hina-chan. These are tears of pure joy," answered Naruto. Minato had been happily watching his son, but he decided to speak up. "Naruto, we won't be able to stay here indefinitely. Our situation is similar to Kurama's. We sealed a part of ourselves in you as a failsafe in case Kurama tried to break out. I was to appear and stop that from happening, along with remaking the seal. Your mother was to appear when you would try to take control of Kurama's power, she would help you do that. However, neither of us ever expected that you would merge with Kurama, so we have nothing to use the power on since neither of those things happened. So instead you can treat us like a summoning jutsu like Kurama. You can summon us to help you in a fight, or if you want us to just talk or if you need advice. You don't need to fill in any events of your life because we were with you and we watched your life unfold so we know what is going on. However, unlike Kurama, we cannot speak with you through our minds since we are not merged into one being. To talk to us, either summon us or go down to your mindscape, although I would prefer to be summoned. Now that you know why that we are here, do you two have any questions that you would like us to answer?" "Yes, I do. First is, how did you two fall in love?" said Naruto. Blushing deeply, Kushina explained the story of how they fell in love. Just like the anime. Second is, why did you seal Kurama into me? I don't hold anything against you two for it and I am actually rather thankful that you two did. Minato proceeded to explain the night of Naruto's birth with Kurama piping up occasionally whenever he missed a fact. Finally, is there anything that I inherit from you two for being your son? Minato was thoughtful for a moment and then said, when you turned 18 or got to Jonin you were supposed to be told of your heritage and inherit everything that we owned, including the Namikaze clan estate, as well as a seat on the clan council. However, you are technically 18 now and I don't see why you shouldn't get it now. If I may say so, Minato, in my opinion we should give him his inheritance when these two decide that it is time to drop their masks. If a 5-year-old kid just walked into the council and demanded that he was the son of the legendary Yellow Flash and that he wanted his inheritance, the council would die of laughter. So I suggest that he waits until he is powerful enough to back up his claim before he runs in. You two can help me train them and you could even teach him that jutsu that you use that you copied from the tailed beast ball and based it upon. Or even better, you could teach him the jutsu that earned you your moniker, the Yellow Flash. How does that sound? That sounds like a great idea. I will begin teaching them the Rasengan immediately. However, I will not teach them the Hireishin no Jutsu until they reach Genin. If anyone ever saw an academy student use that jutsu, they would freak out. Replied Minato. You're saying that people won't freak out when they see a genin using Hireishin? You must have flashed around to many times if you think that. You created that jutsu and only taught it to your 3 most trusted aides, and even they can't do it near to the extent that you do. Face it, people are going to freak if they see him use it regardless of what age he is. How about you teach it to him, but he is only to use it as an absolute last resort. Fine, that's reasonable. Now we should get to training. The first thing I'm going to teach you is the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With both of your insane chakra reserves, you should get it down in no time, and it will speed up your training speed by 1000% due to the memory retention of shadow clones. Said Minato. With that they finally began training. Flashback no Jutsu Kai, and that old man, is how I learned of my parents. We have decided to discard our masks now, so we have come to get my inheritance. Concluded Naruto. HMMPH, it seems as if I have no choice. Here are the letters that your parents left me to give you. All of the money that you now have is locked in the Namikaze clan vault, in the Namikaze compound. I assume you know where it is? Asked Hiruzen. Replied Naruto. I will take him there, Hokage-sama. It is quite close to the Hyuga compound. However, I do not intend on returning to the Hyuga compound except to gather the little amount of valuables that I have there. Said Hinata. Very well, off you two go. And you two can tell Iruka everything. Just be sure to use those seals that you have used here. Hi, Hokage-sama, replied Hinata. But wait, isn't there supposed to be some sort of key that lets us into the compound or something? Naruto asked. Normally there would be, but your dad never used the main door to get into the compound. He would always just flash in and flash out. However, I'm sure he did something that would let you in. His seal mastery was unparalleled. Replied Hiruzen. Fine, I guess we'll just have to stop by the gate and see what's there. Said Naruto. With that, they deactivated the security seals and left to go to the compound. 5 minutes later, Namikaze compound. Naruto and Hinata were standing in front of the huge, solid metal gate that was the entrance to the Namikaze compound. It looked like an ordinary gate except for the fact that it had no handles. There aren't any handles, so I guess that there must be some sort of seal to allow entry. Hina-chan, can you check for the presence of any seals? I don't want to touch the door and have it blow up in my face. Remarked Naruto. Sure, Ruto-kun. Byakugan. Ruto-kun. There are a multitude of complex seals covering the door, and there is a spherical barrier surrounding the entire clan compound. From the limited understanding of seals that I have, I would say that this door reacts to chakra, but I don't know in what way it will react. If it reacts to chakra, then the seals should show up if I do this, said Naruto as he placed his finger on the door and injected some of his chakra into the door. In an instant the door was covered in a huge amount of very complex seals. I see. This matrix is so simple, yet so complex at the same time. The Yondaime really was an absolute sealing genius. I think I've figured out what to do, but first let me mark your chakra as allowed for entry, Hina-chan. Naruto took Hinata's hand and held his own up to the door, and then flowed his chakra through the door. The seals glowed for a moment and then completely disappeared. Naruto stood back and smirked. Anyo, now what, Ruto-kun? Now we walk in, Hina-chan. Naruto then grabbed Hinata's hand and dragged her straight through the metal door. Once on the other side, Naruto looked at Hinata and chuckled at Hinata's completely confused face. Anyo, what just happened? Asked the confused Hinata. We walked through the door, Hina-chan. But the door was solid metal. I told you that my father was a sealing genius, didn't I? Seals are an amazing thing, and it's sad that Fuinjutsu is becoming a lost art. I understand that now, Ruto-kun, but I'm still getting used to the fact that I just was dragged through a solid object. If you think that a phasing seal is weird, you probably shouldn't delve much further into Fuinjutsu than you already have. I've seen some really weird experimental stuff, like a seal that turns somebody's head into a cabbage. Hinata's sweat dropped and said, I think I'm going to stick to knowing the basics of Fuinjutsu now. Anyways, did you notice the root member who was spying on us? Yeah, I did, replied Naruto, and I wanted him to report to his boss so that a council meeting would be held. I think it would be fun if we crashed it, don't you, Hina-chan? Ooh, that will be so much fun to reveal our true selves to the whole council at once. We should go in under a kitsune illusion so no one notices that we are there, before interrupting a serious part of the meeting. I can only imagine how angry Hiyashi will be when we show up," replied Hinata gleefully. Naruto proceeded to make a shadow clone and ordered it to find out when the meeting would be held. The clone hanged into a bird and flew off. Hinata then made 5 clones and told them to gather her valuables from her room in the Hyuga estate. They put themselves under a kitsune illusion that made them invisible and left to fulfill their task. "Okay, now that the business is done, let's check out our new home, Hina-chan," said Naruto as they entered the main compound. As Naruto and Hinata entered the main compound, the first thing they noticed was the huge amount of dust. The second thing that they noticed was a small table with a scroll on it in the middle of the room. Naruto walked over to the table and picked up the scroll, blew off the dust and carefully unrolled it. He then read aloud to Hinata. "Naruto, if you are reading this, then that means that we are dead and that you have been notified of your lineage and inheritance. While we are sorry that we couldn't be there for you, I hope you can understand why we couldn't be there and why you were not told of your lineage from the start. We do, however, want you to know that we loved you and will always love you even if we aren't there physically. When you do decide to take up the Namikaze family name, I hope you will do so proudly. If and when you do decide to marry someone, we want to make sure that you choose someone who brings out the best in both of you. And for whatever reason, if that person is Kushina's best friend Hitomi Hyuga's daughter, bring up Clan Act 31. B. If you are ever forced to defend her in a council meeting. If you bring that up and she agrees, you both will be untouchable by both the Hyugas and those idiots on the civilian council. I understand that they will probably try even still, especially that prick Hiyashi, but I know all of the laws of Konoha by heart, and there are no loopholes to 31b. I hope that you eventually do decide to continue the Namikaze bloodline, and I also understand that the civilian council will probably try to enact the Clan Restoration Act upon you. You may choose that you want multiple wives or you may not. The council will probably try to force you into choosing multiple wives, but in reality they have no choice in the matter, as it is up to the clan head of the endangered clan to choose whether to follow the act or not. Since you are my only son, and I am probably dead, that automatically makes you the clan head and gives you a seat on the clan council. Anyways, enough of the boring clan stuff. We have left you the entirety of our jutsu library for you to view at your pleasure, and the Namikaze family fortune is sealed within the vault under the compound, along with a few special things. I hope that you will enjoy living at your new home and wish you luck in your life. With love, Minato Namikaze, Kushina Uzumaki. P.S. I understand that it has probably been a long time since anybody has entered the compound and that it is probably quite dusty. I have taken the liberty of sealing in a small dust cleaning jutsu within this scroll that will activate whenever this scroll is closed. So you can keep this scroll as a portable dust cleaner. After he finished reading the scroll, Naruto rolled it up and there was a bright flash of light. When the flash died down, there was not a speck of dust in sight within the entire compound. "And that's a small dust cleaning jutsu?" asked Naruto aloud in amazement. "I think that a big one would clean the dust out of the entirety of Konoha." Hinata was thoughtful for a moment and then said, "That jutsu sort of looked like a space-time jutsu. In other words, I think that the dust was transported somewhere, not just poofed out of existence." I guess you're right, Hina-chan. But where would my dad transport that much dust to? Meanwhile, at the Hyuga compound, Hiyashi's study. Hiyashi had just left his study to go to a clan meeting about the fact that Hinata still wasn't home, when out of the corner of his eye he saw a flash of light from under the door. Curious, he opened the door and was greeted with a wall of 13-year-old dust that quickly tried to escape through the open door. He slammed the door shut to prevent the rush of dust and called to a branch member that was walking by. "Get a maid or 30 to clean my study while I am at the meeting. It had better be clean by time I'm done with my meeting." "Hi, Hiyashi-sama. If I may ask, why does your study need to be cleaned?" "It was just cleaned yesterday, sir. You will see when you clean it. Now I have a meeting to attend to and I will not hesitate to say that it was you who held me here if I am late. So do you have any more stupid questions?" "No, sir." "Good." With that said, Hiyashi walked off to the clan meeting, thinking, "When I find out who did this, there will be hell to pay." Back at the Namikaze compound, That's a good question, Ruto-kun, but the dust is not our problem anymore, so don't worry about it," said Hinata sweetly. "If you say so, Hina-chan. Now let's go and explore our new home. But first let's dispel our henge. We can be ourselves in here." Naruto and Hinata dispelled their henge and then started to wander through the estate. Since they were in the main compound, they started with the master bedroom. They then checked out the master bathroom, which was connected to the bedroom. Naruto was overjoyed at the size of the bath and that he would now get to shower with consistently hot water. Hinata was thinking devious thoughts of how she could make it look like an accident while walking in on a bathing Naruto. After exiting the bathroom into the main bedroom again, they encountered the clones that Hinata had sent to retrieve her belongings. They had stopped by Naruto's apartment as well and grabbed the things that they deemed necessary for Naruto to survive. So no instant ramen, as well as her precious items. The stop at Naruto's was unplanned, so one of the clones had made 3 more clones to help. A clone cloning? It's cloneception. The originals helped the clones put away the stuff before the clones dispelled. Naruto and Hinata then left and continued their walk. They stopped by the well-stocked dojo before Hinata said that she was getting tired. It was 2 a.m. at that point. Just then Naruto received the memories of the clone he had sent out earlier. Apparently, the council meeting has been scheduled for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I see that you are tired, Hina-chan, and I'm pretty tired too, so let's head back to the bedroom and get some rest. We can explore the rest of this place tomorrow. MK Ruto-kun, responded Hinata tiredly with a large yawn following. They headed back to the master bedroom, and Hinata kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the bed. In an instant she was asleep. Naruto just chuckled at his mate's actions and took his time to wash up a little before removing his clothes down to his boxers. Walking up to the bed, he noticed that Hinata was completely sprawled out on top of the bed. He gently lifted up Hinata before using his tails to pull back the covers and placed her on the bed. He then laid next to her before pulling the covers back over them. He muttered, "Sweet dreams, my vixen," before drifting into the land of sleep. The next day, 8 a.m. Hinata woke up to find that while they were sleeping, their tails had intertwined with each other, and that she wouldn't be able to get up without Naruto's help with entangling their tails. Hinata then kissed Naruto gently on the lips and whispered, "Ruto-kun, wake up. It seems we have a slight problem." Naruto, who had been awakened by Hinata's kiss, rubbed his eyes and said, "I could get used to waking up like that." "What's the problem, Hina-chan?" Hinata giggled and said, "Well, Ruto-kun, it seems that our tails don't want either of us to leave the bed and get ready this morning. Can't we just stay in bed then? I haven't had that good of a sleep in ever." "Sorry, Ruto-kun, but we have to crash the council today, remember?" Grumbling a little, Naruto said, Fine. Let's get ourselves untangled and washed up, then we can go visit the kitchen and see if there is anything to eat." With a little bit of difficulty and a little blushing, Naruto and Hinata were able to untangle their tails. Hinata nearly got a nosebleed upon seeing Naruto in his boxers before leaving to shower. She tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to keep the dirty thoughts of Naruto in his boxers out of her head while she showered. Naruto walked off into one of the guest rooms and used the shower in there. Hinata meanwhile was quite glad that she was in a shower because she got quite the nosebleed when she used her Byakugan to check on Naruto and saw him showering. She stared for a while before snapping to her senses and finishing her shower. Naruto finished his shower and headed back to the master bedroom, before knocking on the bathroom door and asking, "Hina-chan, are you done in there?" "Sure, come in, Ruto-kun," was her response. Naruto opened the door and was treated to the sight of Hinata wrapped in only a towel. Naruto noticed this and froze like a deer in headlights. Finally finding his voice, he said, Hina-chan? I thought you said that you were done?" Giggling, Hinata said, "What's the matter, Ruto-kun? Do you not like what you see?" No, it's not that. It's just, I'm wearing enough for when it's just you around." Hinata then dropped her voice to a low, sultry tone and continued, "In fact, no clothes at all is enough clothes with just you around." Naruto froze again and slipped into a trance that wasn't broken until Hinata had gotten the rest of her clothes on and said, "Come on, Ruto-kun. Let's see what is in the kitchen." Right," was his response as Hinata dragged him towards the kitchen. They found that the kitchen had several labeled pantries with a variety of choices. Curious, Hinata opened the one that said, "Strawberries, and found that the pantry was empty except for a small sealing matrix on the bottom. Even more curious now, Hinata injected some of her chakra into the seal, and to her pleasant surprise, a completely fresh strawberry poofed into existence with a small cloud of smoke. Taking a bite out of the strawberry, Hinata said, "This is amazing, Ruto-kun. This strawberry must be at least 13 years old and yet it tastes completely fresh." She then eyed several pantry's labels and set to work. Within 15 minutes she had made a batch of piping hot cinnamon rolls and a huge bowl of homemade ramen and set them out on the table for them to eat. "Now Ruto-kun, you have to understand that today is special and that I will not make you ramen for breakfast very often. Do you understand?" said Hinata as she poured them both a bowl of ramen. "Ah, but Hina-chan, ramen is a gift from the gods, just like the kawarimi was a gift from the sacred log," complained Naruto. "If you say so, Ruto-kun, but I won't give you your ramen until we come to an understanding," she said, holding Naruto's bowl away from him. "Okay, fine, you win, Hina-chan," replied Naruto in defeat. "Good boy, here you go." She gave the bowl to Naruto, who then sucked it down in record time. And then another. And then another. "Hinata, I have to honestly say that your homemade ramen rivals Ichiraku's and your cinnamon buns could quickly become one of my new favorite foods. I'm flattered that you would think that my ramen is as good as theirs, Ruto-kun, but I did spend years getting the recipe just right so that you would like it. I am also glad that you like my cinnamon buns, since they are my favorite food and I will make them quite often." They spent the rest of their meal chatting about various ideas for pranks. They then cleaned up their dishes and checked the time. It was 9:45, so they headed out to the gate, hanged into their 13-year-old selves, and then put on a kitsune illusion that rendered themselves invisible before heading out to the Hokage Tower. If I were evil, I would end this chapter right here, but I said I would get to the council in the last chapter, so the story goes on. And hey, you people wanted longer chapters, right? Hokage Tower, Council Meeting Room, 10 a.m. The council meeting room was a large room with a long, circular table in the middle of it. Think the Gokage Summit meeting table, but a lot bigger. Currently sitting at the table on one side were the clan heads of the Nara, Yamanaka, Akamichi, Aburame, Inazuka, and Hyuga clans. On the other side of the table were the members of the civilian council along with the Hokage's counselors and Danzo. Sitting in between the two sides was the Hokage. The Hokage cleared his throat to silence the quiet muttering of the civilian council and said, "So what is the reason that you have called a council meeting this time?" A counselor spoke up and said, "Well, Hokage-sama, it has come to our attention that the Dem." He was silenced by the look Hiruzen gave him. Uzumaki boy and the Hyuga heiress were seen entering the Namikaze clan compound last night. We would like to know why they were seen doing so. Upon hearing of his daughter, Hiyashi perked up and said, "Yes, I would very much like to know why my daughter was seen last night with that boy. Especially since she never came home from the academy yesterday." The silence and tension that followed was intense. The Hokage opened his mouth to speak when a cute giggle rang through the air. Instantly, the shinobi side was on alert, with kunai at the ready. Hiyashi had his Byakugan activated and scanned the room. He didn't see anything. "There's no one there," stated Hiyashi. Suddenly another giggle rang out and a feminine voice was heard. "Poor Hiyashi, he thinks that his weak Byakugan would be able to see us." A male voice then said, "Don't you think that you should treat him with a little more respect? After all, he is your FA. The center of the room shimmered and revealed a 13-year-old Hinata passionately kissing Naruto. Hiyashi was outraged. The civilian side was in chaos. The shinobi side just looked confused. The Hokage was calm but had a grin on his face. To say that Hiyashi was outraged would be a huge understatement. He was beyond pissed. First, his failure of a daughter didn't come home after the academy. Then he learned that she had actually failed the graduation exam. A Hyuga failing the academy graduation exam was unheard of. They were the elite of the elite. They were all-seeing. They were the Hyuga, the most powerful clan in all of Konoha. But to hear that his daughter had failed the exam made the normally controlled head of the Hyuga lose his cool. Next, his study was magically filled with an insane amount of dust. And then he got called to a clan meeting, only to learn that his daughter had been seen entering an unenterable place with the demon boy. That bit of info had certainly gotten his attention. But that was when the two in question had suddenly appeared in the middle of a very well-guarded room, the very room that they were meeting in. And to top it all off, his daughter had appeared by silencing the demon with a very large kiss. Not only that, but Hiyashi was pretty sure that his daughter had insulted his Byakugan. Hiyashi was very, very angry, and after he got this all sorted out, someone was going to feel his wrath. Most likely his daughter. "Hinata," Hiyashi said to the still kissing couple in a deathly cold voice, "you are to separate from that thing at once and return to your room immediately. You will wait there until I have decided your very severe punishment." Hinata broke away from kissing Naruto, much to the latter's disappointment, and turned to her father and said, "I don't think I will, father." She said the word, "father," with a huge amount of venom in her voice. She turned back to Naruto and said, "You were saying that I should treat that man with more respect because he is my father, right, Ruto-kun? Well, I only give respect to the people who have earned it from me. That list is pretty small so far, and includes you, your parents, Kurama-sensei, and Hokage-sama." Turning back to Hiyashi, Hinata said, "I will not be returning to the Hyuga compound, father, because I have a new home now. I also call upon Clan Act 31B. At this Hiruzen spoke up and said, Clan Act 31B is a very rarely used law. It states that an heir, or in this case heiress, may choose to hand off her title and all associated privileges to someone else in the same clan and at the same time denounce their own name and have another clan give them their name. That is correct, Hokage-sama. I choose to give my title of Hyuga heiress to my sister Hanabi. I also choose to take up residence in the name of the..." Hinata was cut off by Hiyashi stating, "I know of Clan Act 31B, and I also know of its only weakness. That is that in order to join the new clan, you must have written permission from the entirety of the clan that you are trying to join. If even one member of the clan does not want you, then you will not be able to join said clan. So what clan have you tried to convince to let your pathetic self join them?" Hinata upon hearing this just giggled and said, "It wasn't hard to convince this clan to let me join. I choose to join the Namikaze clan. I have the required signatures right here on this scroll." She took a scroll out and tossed it to the still grinning Hokage. The Hokage took the scroll out and looked over its one signature. He nodded and said, "The signature checks out. Hinata is no longer to be known as Hinata Hyuga, and is now to be known as Hinata Namikaze." "That's impossible. The Namikaze have been extinct since the Yondaime died. Let me see that scroll," Hiyashi demanded. Shrugging, the Hokage tossed Hiyashi the scroll. He unrolled it and read it. He got to the signature and dropped the scroll. It read Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Shaking in anger, he said, "You mean to say that this demon is the Yondaime's son? That is impossible." The Hokage laughed and said, "The civilian council has all the proof you need. In fact, the very reason that this meeting was called is all the proof you need." Naruto and Hinata were seen entering the Namikaze compound. A compound which is only enterable by those of Namikaze blood and those that they have chosen to be allowed to enter. If anyone else tries, they will meet a rather painful experience. Upon hearing this, Hiyashi shut up and the civilian council was again in uproar. One pink-haired banshee's mother in particular said, "If he truly is the last of the Namikaze, I propose that we enact the Clan Restoration Act upon him. I propose that my doe..." "No," Naruto cut her off, "I will not partake of the CRA. You don't have a choice, boy. Actually, I do. It is up to the clan head to decide if a member partakes of the CRA. And ever since my father died, I was and still am the new clan head of the Namikaze clan. And I say no. Hina-chan is my one and only mate," responded Naruto, shutting her up. Shikaku, upon hearing this, raised an eyebrow and his head off the desk and said, "That is an interesting choice of words, Naruto. Care to explain why you chose the word mate?" Naruto turned to Hinata and winked at her. Getting the signal, she took off the heavy jacket that she was wearing and revealed that she was wearing a low-cut magenta tank top. What can I say? I like the idea of Hinata in tank tops. That showed off a great amount of her fox tattoo and cleavage. Turning back to Shikaku, he said, "I don't know, Shikaku-san. Can you explain why I used the word mate? If you're anything like your son, you should be able to figure it out." Shikaku scanned Hinata for a moment, and rested his eyes on her tattoo. Suddenly he raised his eyebrows, muttered, "Troublesome," and put his head back on the desk. Shibi Aburame then chose to speak up for the first time and said, "It is logical to assume that Shikaku has indeed constituted the reason for your peculiar choice of words in his astute mind. However, not all have his caliber of intelligence, and it appears that said reason for your word choice is too troublesome for Shikaku to endeavor to explain to us all. So I ask you, Naruto, would you care to explain what exactly Shikaku has come to realize that is so troublesome?" I got to say, writing that part right there was a whole lot of fun thinking of the words that Shibi should use. Naruto grinned and said, "In fewer words, do you mean to say that Shikaku was able to figure it out but the rest of you weren't and you would like an explanation?" Shibi nodded and Naruto continued, "Very well. That tattoo that Hina-chan has is no ordinary tattoo. It is a mate mark. I marked Hina-chan as my mate when we were both 5 years old. As for why Shikaku-san thinks this is troublesome, I think this should explain." Naruto nodded to Hinata and they both made a hand sign and said, "Kai." They were both engulfed in a cloud of smoke and when it cleared, they were standing there in their full Hanyu forms. At this Hiyashi finally found his voice and said, "So you corrupted my daughter? You truly are a demon. We should kill the boy and see if there is a way to reverse the process on my daughter." The civilian council also muttered in agreement with Hiyashi. Hinata giggled and said, "We are half demons technically. And while you could think of it as corruption, I prefer to think that Ruto-kun enhanced me. There are so many benefits to being like this. It truly is a wonderful thing that he did for me. Oh, and there is no way to revert the process, so don't try." Hiyashi upon hearing this started making the hand signs for the caged bird seal under the desk until Hinata cut him off by saying, "And stop making the signs for that stupid seal under your desk. It won't work, or you could continue if you fancy the idea of that seal on your head. I certainly won't stop you then." Hiyashi stopped making the seals and said, "Fine. Then we will just kill you both. I'll start with Hinata since she is a weak failure." Hiyashi started to stand up when Naruto said, "I wouldn't do that if I were you. Hina-chan is stronger than me." Hinata pouted and said, "You're never going to let that go, are you, Ruto-kun?" "Just because I can do this," Hinata proceeded to hold her finger up and formed a Rasengan on it. She then expanded the Rasengan to the size of Jiraiya's massive Rasengan, the Rasengan he used against the Preta Path of Pain, before shrinking it down to the size of a pea, before dispelling it. "Doesn't mean that I'm stronger than you. After all, your biggest Rasengan is bigger than my biggest, so I prefer to think that we are of equal strength." Naruto grinned and said, Fine, Hina-chan. We are equal in strength, if you say so. I just can't help but agree with you when you make such a cute face like that." Hinata brightened up, giggled and said, "I know that, Ruto-kun, that's why I did that. I just have to remind you who is in control of our relationship every so often, so you don't get a big head. Anyways, I think that all of the topics that we wanted to be discussed have been covered, so I think we can head on home. I'm feeling pretty hungry, so how about I make us some lunch when we get there? But where are my manners to the council? How about you leave them a parting gift of your guests so that they won't get bored? What do you say, Ruto-kun?" Hiruzen upon hearing this started to panic a little and said, "I don't think that that will be necessary, you two. I really don't want to deal with the paperwork that will inevitably get loaded onto my desk if you do that. So please, whatever you do, just don't do what I think that you are saying Naruto should do." Upon seeing Hiruzen's begging look, Naruto laughed and said, "How about I cut you a deal, old man? If I tell you the secret that will solve the issue of the paperwork, then I can summon them and let them do what they want. I promise you that they won't kill anyone, only maim. So what do you say?" Hiruzen brightened up upon hearing his offer and said, "That sounds acceptable, so what is the answer to the Hokage's bane?" Naruto laughed again and said, "2 words, old man. Shadow clones." Hiruzen's eyes widened with realization and he started pounding his head against the desk repeatedly saying, "Stupid, stupid, stupid, stupid." Naruto laughed and Hinata giggled at his reaction. Naruto then went through some hand seals and bit his thumb, before slamming his palm against the ground and shouting, "Kachiyose no Jutsu." The room was engulfed in a cloud of smoke, which cleared to reveal a pissed-off Kushina being held back by a slightly irritated Minato, and a grinning Kurama. "Now remember, you guys, I said to the old man that you could maim, but not kill. Let me revise that. Since you have Kurama-sensei here with you, you may kill, but make sure they are alive in the end. Okay, affirmed Naruto as he and Hinata walked out the door, placing themselves in their 13-year-old henge as they went. With Naruto and Hinata gone, the civilian council was seriously starting to sweat at what they had just heard his say. "Minato, sweetie, please let me go. I only want to hurt them a little bit," said Kushina as she struggled against Minato's strong grip. Now Kushina, maybe we should hear any excuses that the council has for their actions before we do anything violent," said Minato as he held her back. An ill-fortuned council member then chose to speak up and said, "Excuses, huh? What sort of excuse do we need? That boy is a demon, and now the girl is one too. They should be sentenced to death immediately." The other council members and Hiyashi nodded in agreement. "Bad idea." Minato upon hearing this finally snapped. They insulted his son and his daughter-in-law for the last time. So he did the worst thing that he could possibly do to the council. He released his grip on Kushina. Instantly chakra chains flew from Kushina's back, pinning the council members to their chairs. Kurama signaled Kushina to hold on for a moment as he pulled out something from his black kimono. It was an object not often seen in the Narutoverse. It was a cell phone. He punched a few numbers into the phone and held it to his head as it rang. "Hey, Shinigami, how are you doing? The kid told me that I could kill some people but that they had to stay alive in the end. So do I have your permission to do my kill revive recall thing that I love to do? You can play with them as much as you want while they're dead, they really deserve it." "I've got permission? Great. See you later, maybe we can go on a killing spree for old time's sakes later," said Kurama to his best friend in his phone before hanging up and putting his phone back into his kimono. Looking back to the impatiently waiting Kushina, he nodded and said, "Please continue, Kushina. Their screams will be music to my ears." Yes, the Shinigami is Kurama's best friend. They met after one particularly nasty slaughter, and became fast friends. The favor Kurama called in is a pretty common one. He likes to kill people, then revive them, then kill them again. I got that idea from another fanfic. Alright Kurama, I've decided that I'm going to summon her. They deserve it, and since I don't have to worry about them staying dead, she'll get all the exercise that she wants. After she has her fun, then it's my turn, and after I'm done, then you can do anything else that you want to do to them," said Kushina. Minato heard what she said and flew through some hand seals and shouted, "Fuinjutsu, liquid sealing barrier." Hiruzen was confused at why Minato did this and asked him why he did. Minato responded by saying, "Do you want the Hokage Tower to be soaked through with blood?" Upon hearing this, several of the civilian council members pissed themselves, but they couldn't help but wonder who her was. That's when Kushina flew through some hand signs, bit her thumb, slammed her palm against the ground and yelled, "Kachiyose, Oni Neko." Now those of you who understand a little Japanese will know that she said, "Summoning, demon cat." While most people would think that she meant to summon Matabi, the Nibi Biju, they would be wrong. While she could in fact summon Matabi with Yugito's permission, what Kushina was summoning was worse. Far worse. When the smoke cleared, standing there on its haunches was the cat known as the Genin's Bane. Standing there was the fire daimyo's wife's cat, Tora. Upon seeing this the council members just laughed and said, "That's the best you can do? A pathetic little kitty? We were worried for nothing." Kushina just grinned and said, "Tora, sick him." Tora let out a vicious snarl and flew at the nearest council member. Claws cleaved effortlessly through flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Screams filled the room and Tora leapt to her next victim. The total carnage that ensued was absolutely horrific. Tora actually succeeded in killing every member of the civilian council. She also noticed that something was off with the old man sitting at the end of the bench, so she jumped him. She ripped through the seals that Danzo had placed on his arm and scratched out each and every one of Danzo's implanted Sharingan eyes. Kurama upon seeing those eyes was instantly enraged and pretty much warped to him and snapped his neck with a resounding crack. Kurama decided that Naruto wouldn't mind if Danzo stayed dead. Tora was satisfied with the exercise that she got and ran out the door, thankful for the chance to escape from her horrible owner. Hiruzen realized that he would have to send some genin out on a mission to catch her, but he resolved to pay the genin double what he had been paying them previously from now on to whoever accepted that mission. He was also extremely glad that Minato had put up his seals when he did. Who knew that those civilian council members could produce that much blood? It was obvious to him that they were in fact currently dead. Tora was satisfied with the exercise that she got and ran out the door, thankful for the chance to escape from her horrible owner. Hiruzen when suddenly they all gasped for air as their hearts started pumping again. They looked around with absolute terror in their eyes. Obviously the Shinigami had been doing his job of having fun with them extremely well before he decided to send them back. Now it was Kushina's turn for some fun. She smirked evilly as she sent some more chakra chains out and impaled each of the council members and Hiyashi. Did you think I forgot about Hiyashi? I did not, it's just Tora knew that she wouldn't be able to take on Hiyashi without at least being slightly injured, so she didn't bother with attacking him, through their stomachs, arms, and legs, pinning them each against the wall. As their blood flowed it was absorbed into Minato's seal and disappeared. Kushina then walked up to the first council member. She grabbed his arms and tore them out of his sockets. She then grabbed his hands and broke each finger, one at a time. Next she kicked out his knee sockets and smashed his femur with her foot. Then, she pummeled his chest, shattering his ribs. Finally to end it, she grabbed his head and twisted it, snapping his neck, killing him. She repeated this exact process for each of the council members and Hiyashi. Finally satisfied with her work, she released her chains and took a step back. Once they had revived again, it was Kurama's turn. What he did to them was simple, yet extremely effective and painful. He used a special jutsu called Kitsune Arts, slow burning flame. This lit a small amount of fire onto each of the council members and Hiyashi and slowly, and very painfully, spread across their entire bodies. Satisfied once the jutsu was used, he stood back and watched them flail around as the flames spread across their bodies until they each could take it no more, and they died just from the sheer sensation of the all-consuming pain that racked their bodies. This effectively cauterized their multiple wounds, stopping the bleeding of their bodies. The flames went out as soon as their victims died. Kurama turned to Minato, now the only remaining member of the summoned group who hadn't done anything to the council, and asked, "Well, I'm done. Is there anything that you would like to do before we head home?" Minato responded by saying, "I think that we have done enough, but there is one thing that I would like to do to Hiyashi when he gets revived." They were revived a moment later and Minato walked over to Hiyashi who was trying to stand up and delivered a fearsome punch to Hiyashi's jaw, knocking him out. Satisfied, Minato turned and said, "That's for trying to put an insult to the fine art of Fuinjutsu onto my daughter-in-law." With that done Minato nodded to Kushina and they both disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kurama turned to the Hokage and said, "They will all be fine. All of their broken bones were mended when I revived them, and my flames cauterized their wounds. They will just be in a fair amount of pain for the next month." With that said he poofed away in a cloud of smoke. The shinobi side of the council were absolutely stunned, speechless as to what they had just watched unfold in front of them. They all silently resolved to tell their kids to never get on Naruto or Hinata's bad side. The Hokage cleared his throat to get everyone's attention and said, "Well, that was certainly something. You are all dismissed. I have paperwork to do and there is no reason for any of us to stay here longer." With that said the Hokage and the shinobi side, minus Hiyashi, shined away in a cloud of leaves, leaving the civilian council and Hiyashi to wallow in their well-deserved pain. Meanwhile at the Namikaze compound, Naruto and Hinata had just finished eating their lunch and were now sitting on the kitchen table, with Hinata straddling Naruto, and were engaged in a very passionate makeout session. Suddenly Kurama's voice popped up in both of their heads and said, "We are back in your mind. I don't think that you will have to worry about the council ever again. If anyone deserves to be called a demon after today, it is your mother, Naruto. The things that she did to them definitely have my stamp of approval on it. They should be calling her the red-haired demon from now on." Naruto and Hinata heard this but mostly ignored it as they continued their makeout session. Naruto and Hinata had just finished their makeout session on the kitchen table and were now deciding what they wanted to do with the day. Team assignments were not going to be given out until the next day, so they had the whole day to do whatever they wanted. While they didn't know what team that they were going to be put on, they decided that they would show up anyways so that they could reveal their true selves to their classmates. Besides, they were curious as to what the other teams would be. It would be good knowledge to have in case they ever had to work with another team. "So what do you want to do today, Hina-chan?" asked Naruto. Hinata was thoughtful for a moment before she answered, "Well, Ruto-kun, I was thinking that since we didn't have time last night to finish exploring, we could do that today. Also, I think that we should visit the vault so that we can fill our wallets, along with seeing what your father meant in his letter when he said, A few special things. That has me really curious. Naruto grinned and said, well, we could always summon him and ask him ourselves, but where's the fun in that? Exactly, Ruto-kun, so let's save the vault for last and take our time exploring the compound, replied Hinata. With that they set off. They first went back out front to where the main gate was, since they never really got the chance to inspect the opening area, since when they first came in it was dark, and when they left this morning they were in a rush to get to the council meeting. They were pleasantly surprised with the state of the grounds. Normally, if you left grounds like this uncared for 13 years, you would find that the grass would have grown wild and there would be weeds everywhere. What Naruto and Hinata found was what appeared to be freshly cut grass, and instead of weeds everywhere, there were beautiful wildflowers growing all over the place. I'm pleasantly surprised with the state of our lawn, Hina-chan. I guess my dad must have somehow invented a seal that keeps the grass cut at a certain length, commented Naruto. I guess that is plausible, but I for one am really pleased with all of these beautiful wildflowers that have grown. I don't think that I have the heart to remove them. I am also amazed that I cannot see even one weed growing anywhere, said Hinata. In that case we won't do anything to the lawn. We will let the wildflowers grow as they please, and the seal will keep our grass at a manageable length. So it seems that we will never have to do any lawn maintenance. I guess we just got lucky with the lack of weeds though. They then continued walking along the perimeter of the compound, observing that the state of the lawn seemed to be the same not just at the front of the compound, but everywhere. As they followed the compound wall along, the wall stopped and gave way to a mountain. Naruto and Hinata noticed an entrance to a cave that went inside the mountain. They entered it and walked along a passageway that was lit by what appeared to be seals giving off a pleasant blue light. The passageway opened up to reveal a huge cavern that had several steaming hot springs in it on one side, and on the other had a large waterfall that spilled from a crevice in the cave wall into a large crystal clear lake of pure water. The room was lit by the same seals that emitted the blue light, and the light reflected off the surface of the lake, turning the whole room a brilliant shade of aquamarine. This is absolutely amazing, Ruto-kun. To think that such a place of natural beauty existed in a clan compound is unheard of, said Hinata in awe. You're right, Hina-chan, and it's ours to share with each other. No one else but us gets to experience this place. It will be our own private haven, said Naruto. At this, Hinata turned to him and enveloped him in a huge kiss, which he returned with great fervor. They broke apart only because they were both running out of air. When they did so, Hinata noticed a passageway that was not the way that they had come in. Walking over to it with Naruto in tow, she noticed a carving on the wall next to the entrance of the passageway. She gasped when she realized what it was. Ruto-kun, this carving is a map of a series of tunnels and passageways that lead everywhere in the village. There is even one that leads straight into the Hokage Tower, said Hinata in amazement. You're right, Hina-chan, said Naruto. Then grinning mischievously, he said, think of all the pranks that we could get away with if we utilize these tunnels. Hinata giggled and said, you're right, Ruto-kun. Konoha won't know what hit it. But that is something for another day. We should head back and finish checking out the compound before it gets late. We still have plenty we haven't seen. They then headed back out the way that they came in and continued following the perimeter. When they got to the back of the compound, they noticed that the area they were in was the garden. They explored the garden a little further and were delighted to find that it was filled with all sorts of fruits and vegetables on one side, and on the other it was filled with the most beautiful flowers that they had ever seen. Naruto picked one flower and gave it to Hinata and was rewarded with another passionate kiss. When they broke apart, Hinata took the flower she had been given and put it in her hair. Naruto, upon seeing this, said, wow, Hinata, you look even more beautiful with that flower in your hair. He was rewarded with another kiss, and Hinata mentally noted to herself that she would come by the garden every day for a different flower to put in her hair. They left the garden and continued along to the only side of the compound that they hadn't been and found a large pool with several benches and lounge chairs situated around it. Seeing this, Naruto commented, why did my family need to get a pool when they had a lake that they could go to? Hinata giggled and said, I think it's so that in case your family ever had any guests they didn't have to reveal a secret place while still allowing their guests to be able to relax in the water. Also, the lake doesn't have any sunlight, so girls wouldn't be able to lay in the sun and tan. They then proceeded to reach the front of the compound again and entered the main building. The first place that they visited inside was the clan's library. To say that it was big would be an understatement. The library was absolutely massive. There were thousands of scrolls, and they were all neatly alphabetized and separated by their content type. The jutsu section alone was 3/4 of the library's total contents. Naruto spoke up and said, "I don't think that I'd be able to even read through half of the jutsu scrolls in my lifetime, let alone master the jutsus in them." Hinata once again giggled and said, "You're forgetting one thing, Ruto-kun. We are both heinous, so we have all the time in the world. Also, we both know the shadow clone jutsu, so that will definitely speed up the process." Naruto just stood there dumbly and said, "Oh yeah, right. How did I forget about that?" Hinata just giggled and they moved on to the next section of the house, but not before leaving some shadow clones to start on learning the new jutsus. The next place was the study, which was a small room with a large desk in the middle. In the corner of the room were blank scrolls of all sorts of sizes. Seeing these, Naruto remembered something he had previously forgotten and said, "Hey, I can finally copy the scroll of seals with those." Naruto then took a scroll that was around the size of the scroll of seals and took out the piece of paper that he had used on the scroll of seals. Placing the paper on the blank scroll, he injected some chakra into it and the kanji on the paper disappeared, indicating that the scroll was successfully copied. Naruto and Hinata both made some shadow clones and set them to work examining the scroll. The originals left the clones to their work and left the study to move on. First they stopped by the kitchen where Hinata made them dinner consisting of curry and rice. It was around 8 p.m. and they hadn't eaten since lunch, so they were pretty hungry. They quickly ate before getting up and moving on after doing the dishes. They briefly examined the guest rooms, which were surprisingly of higher class than they thought they would be, and moved on to the armory. The armory was well stocked with not only kunai and shuriken, but also all sorts of interesting weapons like swords, senbon, kusarigamas, the weapon Hanzo uses, spears, and naganatas. What was even more impressive was the sheer amount of paper bombs that the place held. There were all sorts of creative varieties other than the original explosive kind too. Naruto and Hinata both mentally noted that they would try and learn a weapon style to complement their own abilities. Finally, it was time for them to check out the clan vault, so they walked down the staircase that led to the basement of the compound. They walked down the path that was lit by what seemed to be ever-burning torches. I love seals because I can do pretty much anything I want with them. I'll be sure to include some of the more creative seals in later chapters. You'll also see a lot of the creative ones in the omakes, until they reached a dead end. The wall, however, wasn't like the normal stone wall that the rest of the basement was. It was jet black and made of pure obsidian. Naruto was thoughtful for a moment and said, "I figure that this is the vault. I also assume that it is equipped with a phasing seal just like the main gate, but I can only assume that the supplementary protective seals are a lot worse if you set them off than what the main gate would do to you. However, we shouldn't have that problem." With that said, he grabbed Hinata's hand and injected his chakra into the wall, marking Hinata as a person that could enter the vault. Still holding hands, they stepped through the wall. This is the perfect point for a cliffhanger, but I am not going to torture you guys this time. Inside was a large, well-lit room that was covered in a sea of ryo. There was literally enough money in the room to last Hinata and Naruto through their immortal lives. But that was not what caught Naruto and Hinata's attention. What they were drawn to was a weapon rack in the corner of the room. On it were some very unique weapons. First was a katana that glowed softly blue in the light that had a swirl for a tsuba, and a small red whirlpool on the bottom of the hilt. Next was a kusarigama that had a soft lavender handle and a pitch-black blade that seemed to absorb all of the light that was around it. Then there was two butterfly daggers with wavy blades of what appeared to be pure crystal that light reflected off of, causing rainbows to appear on nearby surfaces. For those of you who have played Soul Calibur 2, the shape of the butterfly daggers is the shape of Taki's ultimate weapon, Chris Naga. Finally, there were a pair of knuckle blades, awesome as weapons, that were bright orange, that seems to be glowing orange with power. Naruto couldn't help but be drawn towards the sword and the knuckle blades, while Hinata was drawn towards the kusarigama and the butterfly daggers. They picked up said weapons, and they felt extremely comfortable in their hands. They exchanged weapons, but each other's weapons just didn't feel as natural in their hands. If anyone else tried to pick up these particular weapons, then they will receive a nasty surprise. I will explain that later though. They gave each other's weapons back and they resolved that they would each become masters of their weapons. Naruto strapped the sword onto his back and put the knuckle blades into his pouch while Hinata strapped the kusarigama to her back and the butterfly daggers to her hips. Again, think tacky. Before they refilled their wallets with some of the money that was lying around and they headed out back through the door and back to the master bedroom. They kissed each other good night before getting ready to go to bed and hopping into their bed, falling asleep to the sound of each other's breathing. Hinata woke up the next morning to find that once again, her tails had entwined with Naruto's. So she kissed him to wake him up, and they untangled their tails and got out of bed to get ready for the day. After they were all washed up, they headed down to the kitchen to get some breakfast. Hinata cooked some more cinnamon buns to go with the cereal that they each ate. After breakfast, they cleaned up their dishes and went back to the bedroom where they had left their new weapons. They strapped on their weapons and left the main building. While they were walking to the main gate, Hinata piped up and said, "Hey Ruto-kun, how about we use some of the passageways in the cave to get to the academy? I'm sure that there will be one that leads there." "That's a great idea, Hina-chan. It will be interesting to see where it pops out." With that said, they headed to the cave where they followed the passage until they reached the cavern. Once there, they stopped and examined the map that was carved on the wall. Once they memorized the way they would need to take to get to the academy, they left and started following the winding passageways. In what felt like no time at all, they reached a wall that appeared to be made of the same material that the academy building was. They also noticed that the wall had a phasing seal on it. They also noticed that the seal had the kanji of Naruto and Hinata's names on it. I guess marking you as a member of the Namikaze clan on the front door also marked you on the phasing seals that these passageways lead to. "That's convenient," said Naruto. Hinata nodded and then activated her Byakugan to check if the coast was clear for them to walk through without them being seen. It was, and they walked through to find themselves in the middle of a hallway in the academy. They walked towards their classroom, ignoring any confused looks that people gave them considering that they didn't bother to henge when they left. It was currently 8:30 and they would be receiving their assignments at 9 o'clock. When they got to their room, they both took a deep breath and opened the door. Surprisingly, all of the other graduating students had gotten to the classroom before them. They all turned their heads to the sound of the door opening, and were completely shocked when they saw who entered. Their eyes followed Naruto and Hinata as the couple made their way to the back of the room, where Naruto sat down in an empty seat, and Hinata sat down on top of him, straddling him legs. She then took him in a deep kiss, completely ignoring the stares that had followed them when they entered the room. Kiba was the first to recover from shock, and he got up and walked up to Naruto and Hinata. Surprisingly, what he said had nothing to do with their unusual appearances. He said, "Hey loser, what do you think you are doing here? This meeting is for those who passed. Also, you're kissing my girl." Not even breaking their deep kiss, Hinata snaked one of her tails around Kiba's neck before picking him up and slamming him 4 inches deep into the concrete wall. Finally breaking their kiss, Hinata turned her head to Kiba, giggled and said, "Silly Kiba. We know that this is a meeting for those who passed, which is exactly why we are here. Or did you not notice the leaf headbands around our arms? Also, I am not your girl. I am Ruto-kun's girl and he is my boy." With that said, Hinata engaged in another makeout session with Naruto. Seeing this, Sasuke got up and walked over to them. He then said to Hinata, "You're strong. I have decided that you will be the one to have the honor of bearing the next generation of Uchiha." All of Sasuke's fangirls squealed in protest as he said this. This time it was Naruto's tail that found itself wrapped around someone's neck. He picked up Sasuke, strangled him a little, and then slammed him 8 inches into the wall next to Kiba. This time Hinata broke their kiss and stood up in front of Sasuke and Kiba. She then said, "You two are absolute idiots. Especially you Sasuke. Did you not hear me when I said that I was Naruto's and only Naruto's girl? Or did you think that didn't apply to you since you were a great Uchiha? Let me get one thing straight. You will never try or even think about taking me away from my Ruto-kun. Since this is only a warning, I will let you off without using the full power of my technique." With that said, she dropped into a Jayuken stance and yelled, 8 trigrams. Castration palm. A. N. A very special thanks to Lord Farsight for allowing me to use what could easily be considered Hinata's ultimate Jayuken technique here. I have told you all before, and I will now tell you again, go check out his crack collection, it's hilarious, before slamming her palm into each boy's crotch. Every boy in the room winced as she did this. Sasuke and Kiba were so far stuck into the wall that they couldn't even bend over in pain. So they did the next best thing. They fainted into blissful unconsciousness. Hinata then turned to Naruto, pouted and said, "Did you have to slam Sasuke so far into the wall? Now everybody will think that you are stronger than me." Naruto quickly apologized by saying, "I'm so sorry Hina-chan, I was just so angry that he inferred that he would have with you that I lost some control. I know that you are stronger," he faltered under Hinata's deepened pout. "Are as strong as me." Hinata then straddled Naruto again and locked him in another deep kiss. The class was completely silent after this. 10 minutes later Iruka walked in shouting, "All right everybody sit down and shut up." He then realized that the entire class was already in their seats and already quiet. He then noticed the still forms of Kiba and Sasuke stuck in the walls, and the forms of Naruto and Hinata kissing in the back of the room. It was then that a certain pink-haired banshee decided to speak up and screeched, "Iruka-sensei. Naruto Baka and Hinata assaulted Sasuke-kun." Naruto and Hinata both flinched at the volume of the banshee's voice, and Iruka sighed and said, "Let me guess, first Kiba walked over to Naruto and Hinata, then he probably yelled something about them not supposed to be here. I also guess that Naruto and Hinata were doing what they are currently doing and Kiba saw fit to say something along the lines that Hinata was his. I also assume that upon hearing that, Hinata proceeded to slam him into the wall. Next I assume Sasuke saw Hinata's display of strength and tried to claim her as his own. That probably ticked Naruto off and resulted in Sasuke being slammed into the wall. Am I right? Naruto broke his kiss, chuckled and said, "Exactly right Iruka-sensei." Only afterwards, Hinata gave them a few choice before using a low-powered 8 trigrams castration palm on them, knocking them out. The banshee shrieked again, "See Iruka-sensei, they assaulted Sasuke-kun. You should punish them." Naruto and Hinata flinched again, and Naruto said, "Hasn't your mom told you by now not to get on our bad sides?" Sakura nodded and Naruto continued, "Then why are you still trying to go against us? We were provoked and rightfully defended our honor. Also, would you like to know why your mom is currently in a huge amount of pain?" Sakura again nodded and Naruto said, "Your mother was one of the idiotic members of the civilian council who tried to have us killed when we showed our true selves before them, even after I revealed my heritage. Therefore, we set them in their place. You may or may not know this, but when I was born, the Kyuubi was sealed within me. Therefore, Naruto was cut off by Sakura screeching, 'Then you're a demon.' Naruto just grinned and continued, 'I'll take that as a compliment. Hina-chan and I are half demons, or Hanyu. But for you to infer that we are the actual things is quite flattering. Anyways, I merged with the Kyuubi when I was 5, and also marked Hina-chan as my mate at that time, transforming her. So what I did to the council was I summoned the Kyuubi. He told me that he unleashed a slow-burning flame that slowly engulfed the council members' bodies. I'm told that that will probably be the most painful thing that they will ever experience in their pathetic lives. So now the entire council is on our side. I am also sure that each of the shinobi clan heads told their kids to not get on our bad sides, and as to why Kiba ignored that, I have no idea. But Hina-chan put him in his place, and Sasuke got what he deserved for trying to take her away from me." At this the entire room was silenced. Then, interestingly enough, it was Shikamaru who spoke up and said, "You mentioned your heritage. What do you mean by that?" Naruto again grinned and said, "I know you Shikamaru. You're the laziest person who has ever existed, but also probably the smartest. So you tell me Shikamaru, who am I related to? If you guess right I'll give you permission to enter our estate as a guest. No one has ever had that privilege before. I would actually like for you to come in, since Hina-chan and I have found quite a few scrolls that would really help with not only your family's shadow jutsus, but also the Nara clan medicine as well." "So who am I related to?" Shikamaru studied Naruto for a moment, locked his eyes on his blonde hair and blue eyes, then widened his own eyes to the size of plates, before muttering, "You're his son, aren't you? That has to be the most troublesome thing to have ever existed." Naruto laughed and said, "It seems you figured it out. Congratulations Shikimaru. As promised, you will be the first one to ever be a guest in our estate. We will figure out a time later." The rest of the class was completely confused as to what had just happened, so Iruka decided to clear it up. "I think I will start the team assignments now, as that will clear the confusion. I will start with the special team of Team 15. The members will be Naruto and Hinata Namikaze, under the Jonin sensei of Anko Mitarashi." The rest of the class's eyes widened in surprise at this revelation, while Naruto and Hinata were sort of surprised that they had gotten a sensei when they had requested not to, but they hid the surprise from their faces. Iruka continued saying, "Onto the normal teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha, Kiba Inuzuka, and Sakura Haruno under Kakashi Hatake. Team 8 will be Shino Aburame, the transfer student Fu of Takigakure, and the transfer student Yugito Ni of Kumogakure under the Jonin sensei Kurenai Yuhi. A.N. Shino is one lucky guy, right? Don't worry, he will only be in a relationship with Fu, and both Fu and Yugito are 13. Naruto upon hearing this whispered to Hinata, "We need to talk with that team sometime later. Those two are like what I was before I merged." Finally, we have Team 10 that will be composed of Shikamaru Nara, Choji Akamichi, and Ino Yamanaka, under Asuma Sarutobi. Just then a pair of kunai flew through the window, which wasn't open by the way, and stuck into the wall, in the process hanging a banner that said, "Anko Mitarashi is here." There was a poof of smoke in the middle of the room, and as it cleared it showed the form of Anko, who turned to the class and yelled, "Now where is my little brother and his cute girlfriend?" Naruto and Hinata were completely ignoring Anko's flashy entrance by kissing in the back of the room. Seeing this immediately annoyed Anko, so she took a kunai out of her pouch and threw it straight at them. Naruto deftly caught the kunai with one of his tails and threw it back in front of her. This annoyed Anko even more, but she kept her cool since they were at least paying enough attention to actually stop her attack. So she shouted, "Okay, that's enough of that, you two. You can do that later, so meet me on top of the roof in 5 minutes. With that, she shunshined off in a swirl of leaves. Finally breaking their kiss, Naruto said to Hinata, "Well, I guess we should see what this about. We can continue at home later." They then shunshined to the roof, not in a swirl of leaves, but in a swirl of blue flames. The rest of the class was shocked that both of them knew the shunshin. Not only that, but they had used flames instead of leaves. Roof of the academy. Naruto and Hinata arrived in a swirl of blue flames to find Anko waiting for them, eating a stick of dango. She nodded at them approvingly and said, "You both know the shunshin. I'm impressed, but now to business. I'm sure you have some questions for me?" Naruto nodded and said, "Why are you our sensei? We already have one and we both requested that we be given no one else." Anko grinned and said, "Well, little brother, it's quite simple. I am your official sensei, as one is needed for you two to officially be a squad. Did you think that the Hokage was going to come clean and say that the Kyuubi was your sensei? That would never fly with the higher-ups, even though you have the council in your pocket. Also, you need a physical person to be there as your sensei if you wish to take the Chunin exams. Besides, the Hokage had to pull quite a few strings to get you into the first ever two-man squad. By the way, what did you do to get those idiots in the council on your side? I've only heard that you did something violent to get those idiots to see sense." Now it was Naruto's turn to grin as he said, "Sorry big sis, but that's classified. Although I'm sure you heard the short version of what we did when we told the Banshee." "That was the short version? Wow, I said it before and I'll say it again, but you should really think about joining the T&I department. We could use someone of your caliber," said Anko. "Anyways, on to business. Normally I would have you take a test to see if you are truly worthy of being a Genin team, but as you two are a special case, I see no need to conduct said test. From what I get the impression of, you two are already high Chunin to low Jonin level already." Naruto said to Hinata through their mind link, "More like high Jonin to Cage level." But Anko doesn't need to know that, before saying to Anko, "So since you are our official sensei, will you need to be there for our missions?" Anko was thoughtful for a moment before she said, "I don't think that I will need to be there. You kids can handle yourselves. The only reason I'm here is to keep the other Genin squads from asking questions. So now that that's done, I'm going to take my leave and get some more dango. You two can have fun doing whatever you want." If you ever want any training in poisons though, don't hesitate to ask. With that she shunshined away to get some more of her precious dango. Naruto turned to Hinata and said, "So what do you want to do, Hina-chan? Should we head back to the estate to continue what we were doing in the classroom? Or should we drop by the old man and get some missions? I know that we don't need any money, but you have to have completed a number of missions before being able to take the Chunin exams. So what do you say? How about we do both? We can drop by the Hokages to get a few missions, then create some clones to do the missions while we head back to the estate so we can continue." Great idea, Hina-chan. With that they shunshined away in a swirl of flames. Hokage Tower. The Hokage was happily smoking his pipe as he relaxed in his chair. Sure, what Naruto and Hinata had done to the council had resulted in an astounding amount of paperwork, but it was worth it in his eyes. For one, he got to watch the council get put in their rightful place, which is something he should have done a long time ago. Second, and by far more important, Naruto had told him the secret to defeating the Hokage's bane. If he had not learned this and he got the amount of paperwork from that incident that he did, he would be drowning in paperwork for at least a year. But that was not the case. Thank the log for shadow clones. How he had not thought of using them before was beyond him, but now that he knew, he had so much time on his hands to do what he wanted. He was half tempted to take a S-rank mission for the fun of it, but the council would never allow it. So there he was sitting in his chair, almost bored. But he could never truly do nothing for long enough to become bored because there was always someone who would appear through the window to ask something of him. It was while Hiruzen was contemplating these things that Naruto and Hinata appeared in a swirl of blue flames. Hiruzen looked up at them and said, "I see that you too have learned the Shunshin. Very impressive for a fresh genin." Naruto laughed and said, "I see that you are enjoying not drowning in paperwork, old man." Hiruzen let out a hearty chuckle and said, "Yes, thanks to you. I am in your department. Now what is it that you two want? I assume that you didn't stop by just to chat. Give us 20D ranked missions, old man," said Naruto, "and you will not need to pay us when we complete them. Just make sure that they go on our record when our clones turn them in. We have no need for any extra money. We checked out the clan vault and I don't think that we will ever need to worry about our monetary status ever. Even considering the fact that we will never die unless killed." Hiruzen chuckled and said, "I see that you two are aiming to become Chunin as quick as possible. Will your clones be under a hench or will they be your true selves?" Hinata giggled and said, "They will be our true selves. Ruto-kun and I want to get the village used to the fact that we are Hanyu and that we are of no harm to them. So we are starting with common D-ranked missions to get ourselves known throughout the village. We won't care what the villagers say as long as they let us do our jobs. And hopefully after they see us do our jobs, they will begin to appreciate us. But that will be for the clones to do. Ruto-kun and I are heading back to the estate to finish what we had started in the academy classroom before we were rudely interrupted, multiple times." Hiruzen's sweat dropped upon hearing this and he got 20 mission scrolls. He handed them to Naruto and Hinata, who walked out the door. They looked over each of them and Naruto was reading over the scroll that had the captured Tora mission on it when Kurama spoke up in his mind. "Kit, I have an idea for that mission. Summon your mom. When she tortured the council, she used that cat as one of the ways that she tortured them." Naruto said, "Hi, Kurama-sensei," and went through the hand seals for the summoning jutsu. He slammed his palm on the ground and in a puff of smoke, there was his mother. "So you want me to summon Tora?" asked Kushina. "Very well, but I should be the one that gives her to the Hokage, as I am one of the few people that can hold her without getting their face clawed off." With that said, she ran through the hand seals and slammed her palm on the ground saying, "Kachiyose, Onineko." Tora appeared in Kushina's arms in a puff of smoke, and to everyone's surprise, she proceeded to jump out of Kushina's arms and into Hinata's. Kushina then said, "I'm impressed, Hinata. The fact that Tora accepts you is all the proof that I need to allow you to sign my special summoning contract." She then clapped her hands and a large scroll appeared in her hands. "This contract will allow you to summon demon cats, and since it is also a demon summoning scroll, it will not interfere with the Kitsune scroll that you have already signed. Just think about cats more than foxes when you summon and you'll get a demon cat when you summon." Kushina handed the scroll to Hinata, who had dropped the mission scrolls that she had been carrying when Tora leapt into her arms. She exchanged Tora for the scroll and then unraveled the scroll. She signed her name and blood before attempting to hand the scroll back to Kushina. Kushina shook her head and said, "Keep it. Since I'm technically dead, you are now the owner of this summoning scroll. Just clap your hands and the scroll will vanish. If you ever need it again, clap your hands again when you need it and it will appear." Hinata clapped her hands and the scroll vanished. Kushina handed Tora back to Hinata before poofing away in a cloud of smoke. Hinata then walked back into Hiruzen's office and gave him Tora. He was shocked that it was Hinata holding the demon cat, and not Kushina. Hinata explained what happened before leaving and meeting back up with Naruto outside. They created 20 cage bushin each, and gave each of the pairs a mission scroll. The clones shined away to do their jobs, leaving the originals alone. Hinata spoke up and said, "I think that is enough distractions for today, let's head back home." They then left and decided to walk leisurely back to the estate. Outside the Namikaze compound, 15 minutes later, Naruto and Hinata had just arrived outside their home to find a platter of delicious-looking cinnamon buns on the ground. They were still piping hot. Hinata of course was ecstatic at the find. She took one of the buns and took a large bite out of it. This is not cannibalism. Shiagorath completely turned the root members into cinnamon buns. There is no trace of humanity in said buns. "These are delicious," she remarked. "You have to try some of these, Ruto-kun." Just then there was a large flash of purple, and standing there in all of his mad godliness was Shiagorath himself. He looked to Hinata and said, "Finally. A fellow cinnamon bun connoisseur who likes my tastes and flavors. That means that I won't have to make you skip rope with your entrails. Instead I'll give you a gift." He snapped his fingers and Hinata got a glazed look on her face. Naruto was completely startled by the sudden appearance of this man, and was only snapped out of his shock by the blank face that Hinata had. He said to the strange man, "Who the hell are you? And what did you do to my Hina-chan?" Shiagorath laughed and said, "Who am I? Well, you my dear friend can call me Shiagorath. Or you can call me Anne-Marie, but if you do, you will enjoy watching me skip rope with your entrails. As for what I did to your mate, well, I gave her a gift. She should be coming back around completely normal if she accepted my gift, and if not, well, let's just say her mind will be more twisted than a twister." At that moment Hinata snapped out of her trance and looked at Shiagorath and asked, "Excuse me Shiagorath-sama, but can I really do that now? Oh, you Japanese people and your silly honorifics. I'll be taking none of that, thank you very much. As for you being able to do that, why don't you practice on this cabbage?" said Shiagorath before he snapped his fingers, conjuring a cabbage. Hinata then snapped her fingers, and the cabbage turned into a steaming hot cinnamon bun. Hinata squealed with delight before running over to the bun and taking a huge bite out of the bun. "A bit cabbagey tasting, but still very good," Hinata remarked to herself. Shiagorath laughed in amusement before saying, "Excellent, you can now turn objects into cinnamon buns. Since you are still a wee bit inexperienced, the bun will take on a little bit of the flavor of the object it had been. But that will go away with practice. Now I have to get back to my palace before the Orioles and Maskin start to kill each other. But first I have to say, that you," he pointed at Naruto, "are the splitting image of your father, minus the fox features of course. But I have to say, those features have given me a wonderfully horrible idea of a new chamber that I could add to Exodilion. That place has been busy non-stop ever since your father reactivated it, and the other chambers are starting to get a bit boring." Naruto immediately perked up upon hearing about his father and asked, "You knew my father?" "How? Of course I knew your father. He was only the champion of my realm. In fact, I would not be here today if your father hadn't chosen to reject the title of Mad God after he defeated myself. I would have been him and he would have been me, but he chose to split off from the power of a god and recreated me. So without him, there would be no me. So I am eternally grateful to Minato for not only stopping the Grey March, but also for giving up godhood so that I could be me once again. But I really must be going. I have so little things to do and so much time to do them." With that said, Shiagorath disappeared in a flash of purple. Naruto just stood there dumbfounded, until Hinata snapped him out of it and dragged him inside. They then went to their bed where they proceeded to make out. The rest of the day passed slowly by as they entertained themselves by training, reading through jutsu scrolls, or just relaxing by the poolside. Life for Naruto and Hinata Namikaze was currently very good. Hinata awoke the next day a bit earlier than usual, as her brain was still in the process of sorting out the information that Sheogorath had given her. Apparently, Sheogorath had deemed it necessary to fill her head with a lot of useless, or so she thought, facts, and also gave her a few more gifts than just the cinnamon bun one. Such as the fact that the max speed of a rolling 6-pound cheese wheel was 20 miles per hour under the right conditions. Hinata untangled her tails from Naruto's without his help. She was only able to do this since one of the random gifts was how to untangle any knot, and went and showered. She then got dressed and set out for a walk. She visited the garden and remembered that she told herself that she would wear a flower in her hair, so she picked out a pretty lavender one, and put it in her hair. She then headed back to the master bedroom. Hinata arrived to find Naruto getting dressed, so they headed down to the kitchen together. Hinata had a devious idea of what to make using her new powers, so she told Naruto to wait outside while she made breakfast. Inside the kitchen, she set to work. She put on a huge pot of water on the boiler, and prepared some ingredients. She then proceeded to make her special homemade ramen. When it was all cooked, she separated the ramen into 12 bowls. She snapped her fingers and instantly all of the ramen in the bowls was transformed into delicious cinnamon buns. Hinata made some rice to go with the buns, before she called Naruto into the kitchen. Hinata saw that Naruto was disappointed at the apparent lack of ramen when he was sure that he had smelled it, and she said, "You really have to try the buns, Ruto-kun, they are extra special today." Listening to his mate, Naruto took a big bite out of one of the buns and his eyes widened at the ramen flavor. He quickly devoured 4 more before saying to Hinata, "I don't know how you made these and I honestly don't care. All I know is that these are probably the most delicious things in existence." Hinata giggled and said, "I knew that you would love them. I made them with the gift that Sheogorath-sama gave to me. So you should be thanking him for giving me such a perfect gift." Naruto had scarfed down another 4 buns while she said this before saying, "I'll be sure to thank him the next time we see him. He may be a little bit off, but I like him." Hinata giggled and said, "I like him too. So what would you like to do today, Ruto-kun?" Naruto was thoughtful for a moment before he said, "I would like to visit Team 8. They have 2 Jinchuriki on that team, and we need them on our side. I figure we can drop by and talk to them during their team assessment. Kurenai is like a big sister to you, right? Do you have any idea when and where she would hold her assessment?" Hinata thought for a moment before saying, "Yes, she is my unofficial Nei-san. As for the time and place, I would have to guess 9 o'clock in Training Ground 8. That was where and when she took me to privately train back when I was with them." She said, "them," with a large amount of venom in her voice. "Okay, it's 8:45 now, so we should head out." They cleaned up their dishes and headed out. Training Ground 8, 9 o'clock. Shino was confused. While he liked his team just fine, as he felt he might be able to open up a little bit to them, he was confused about the lime-haired girl that was chatting animatedly to their other teammate. For some reason, Shino's bugs seemed to be drawn to the girl. He couldn't figure out why, other than for some reason she had a bit of odd chakra. But the weird thing was the other girl on his team also had odd chakra, but his bugs seemed to not care about her. So Shino was standing there trying to figure out the enigma that was the girl named Fu, when Kurenai appeared in a swirl of leaves. "I'm glad to see that you 3 are punctual. To be late for a mission is a crime in my book," said Kurenai while thinking of a certain book reading Jonin. "So today is the day where we see if you 3 are truly ready to become genin. I hope for your sakes that you do well. Today's test will be..." Kurenai was suddenly cut off by Fu and Yugito suddenly whipping around and standing at the ready. "What is it, you two? Your files never said anything about you 2 being sensory types. And I don't sense anything off," said Kurenai. Yugito never took her eyes off a piece of air when she answered, "We aren't sensory types. But I suddenly got the feeling like I was in the presence of someone familiar." "Same," agreed Fu. Suddenly a giggle rang through the air and a cute voice said, "Ah, they figured us out, Ruto-kun. I guess you were right when you said that the illusion would be of no use against people like us." With that, the illusion faded away, revealing Naruto and Hinata standing a few feet away from Team 8. Naruto grinned and then pointed at Fu and Yugito and said, "We both know what you 2 are, and I'm assuming that the other members of your team don't know, and that has to change. You 2 both know what Hina-chan and I are, since you were there in the academy when we told everybody. So Hina-chan and I have 2 questions for the both of you. 1. How much contact have you been in with your tenants? And 2. Would you like to become what Hina-chan and I are? Both Fu and Yugito were dumbfounded. How did this couple know their secrets? No one other than the Hokage knew that they were Jinchuriki. So Fu spoke up and said, "How do you know about that?" "The only person who is supposed to know that is the Hokage." Naruto laughed and said, "Duh, I was like you two are. So of course I recognize another one of my kin. Besides, if you two were not what you are, you would have never have been able to sense us through our illusion." Kurenai chose to interrupt at this point and said, "What are you talking about, Naruto? What do you mean that they are like you were?" Naruto smiled and said, "Well, the easiest way would be to show you all." With that said, he clapped his hands and everyone there fell into unconsciousness. Shared mindscape. Shino and Kurenai woke up to find themselves in a blank expanse of space. They looked around and were immediately fearful for their lives. Standing around them in a circle were Naruto, Hinata, Fu, and Yugito. But that was not what scared them. What scared them was that behind Naruto and Hinata was a nine-tailed fox. They then looked at Fu and Yugito and were completely surprised. Behind Fu was a giant beetle with 6 wing-like tails and a 7th normal tail. Behind Yugito was a large cat with 2 tails that seemed to be entirely composed of blue flames. They were equally surprised when the fox behind Naruto and Hinata started to speak. "Chome, Matabi, it is good to see you again. Now I would like you to kindly answer the question that my kid asked your containers," said Kurama. Matabi spoke up first and said, "I have taken care of my kitten ever since she was left an orphan when her mother died. She has decent control of my powers and I am her mother figure. I speak with her every day." Kurama nodded and said, "So you chose the direct approach. Very well, what about you, Chome?" "I, the lucky number 7 Chome, have chosen to only help Fu when she was in danger of dying. She knows that I'm inside her but I don't interact much with her. If I may ask, Kurama, what approach did you take with your container? I can see that you two have merged, but I am indeed curious as to what would make you choose to do that. I would have thought that you would have been too proud to ever accept a merge." Kurama laughed and said, "I took the same approach that you did. I appeared when he was in danger to save him, but he did something so ridiculous that I offered him the chance to merge. Then he did something even more ridiculous than the first." "Oh, so what did he do?" asked Matabi. Kurama again laughed and said, "The brat stood up to me. And then after he accepted the deal to merge to save his vixen's life, he actually asked what my name was. No one had ever asked my name before. That's what made me really respect the kid." Naruto then interrupted the beasts and said, "While I understand that you haven't seen each other in a long time, can we get to the reason that we are here? I want you to," he pointed at Fu and Yugito, "to merge with your Biju." Chome then spoke up and said, "And why should we listen to you?" Kurama spoke up and said, "If you think that the container gets all the perks when you merge, then you would be dead wrong. First, you wouldn't be stuck behind a seal all the time. You would have free range in your container's mindscape. Second, your container would be able to summon you to the real world. I have to say that it feels excellent stretching your legs after being stuck in a seal for so long. And third, you get a Hanyu form that you can take whenever you want, so you don't have to be stuck in such a large body all the time." Chome thought this over for a moment before saying, "That sounds acceptable. I will merge. Come here, Fu, and rip my seal off. I promise that I will not take over." Fu looked at Naruto and asked, "What will I get if I merge with Chome?" Naruto was thoughtful for a moment before he said, "Well, I'm really not sure what will happen to you appearance-wise, but I can guarantee that you will be far stronger than before. Also, if I am correct, you will be able to share your power with one other person. For Kitsune Hanius that happens through the mate mark, but I have no clue how it will work for you with Chome being an insect. The only cons are that you will be quite noticeable as someone who isn't normal." Fu then walked over to Chome and said, "I'll do it." Her seal appeared in front of her and she ripped it down. There was a bright flash of lime green chakra, and when it died down it revealed the new and improved Fu. She was 18 now, and the only change that was obviously from Chome were the 6 yellow and red wings that grew out of her tailbone. She had grown slightly taller and her S were straining uncomfortably against her tight shirt. How they didn't rip through the shirt, no one knew. She previously had B cups, but they had grown into D cups from the change. She quickly used a demon henge to change her S back until she could get new clothes. A.N. The demon henge actually changes your body unlike the normal henge, which is just an illusion. Shino had turned bright red upon seeing the new Fu. While he now understood why his insects were so interested in her, now he felt like he should follow whatever she said to do. That and his physical reaction to Fu's new body left the normally emotionless man struggling to gain control over his emotions. Fu laughed at Shino as she understood exactly what was happening to him. She had just become a queen of insects, and since Shino had merged his body with insects, he was struggling to control the urges to obey the queen. She came up with a brilliant idea and said to Shino, "I am now a queen of insects, so I understand that you will want to follow me and do whatever I say. However, this would mess up our team dynamics, so I'll cut you a deal. I'll make you my king, so that you won't be affected by my aura. Also, I like you, and I think you are cute, and I can tell by the physical reaction that you're having to me that you obviously like me, so it's a win-win for both of us." Shino just nodded and Fu walked over to him and scattered dust from her tails all over Shino. The dust then settled into the shape of the beetle before burning its way through Shino's coat and giving him a tattoo that encompassed his entire back. Shino instantly felt calmer and he felt that he could control his emotions in Fu's presence once more. He also felt taller and he looked down to see that he was now 18 as well. Fu just smiled at his transformation, but inwardly she thought, damn, he's really hot now. Yugito, upon watching this unfold, decided that she would have to merge or she would be left in the dust in their team, as she could feel the power radiating off Fu and Shino. She turned to Matabi and said, "I'm ready to merge with you." Matabi looked at her and said, "Very well, but first I sense that the vixen here has my scroll. I left that scroll with Kushina, but she died an untimely death, so I thought that I would never see it again. Young Hinata, would you kindly bring it out so that my kitten could sign it before we merge?" Hinata nodded and then clapped her hands, summoning the scroll. Yugito signed the scroll in her blood before giving it back to Hinata. She then turned to Matabi and willed the seal to appear. It did so and she ripped it off, causing an explosion of dark blue chakra. When it subsided, an 18-year-old Yugito stood there. She now had two blue tails that seemed to constantly be on fire. She also had a pair of flaming cat ears and Matabi's different color eyes, one yellow, one green. Her bust size had also increased from B's to D's, and like Fu, she was forced to use a demon henge until she could buy more clothes. Naruto was satisfied with what happened and brought them out of the mindscape. Training Ground 8, they all woke to find that they were still standing. Kurenai looked at her watch and was shocked to see that not a moment had passed. She asked, "How is this possible?" Hinata giggled and said, "Inside a mindscape, the controller can adjust time to how they see fit. It's quite useful if you need to memorize something and don't have a lot of time to do it." Kurenai then continued by saying, "So let me get this straight. Yugito and Fu were Jinchuriki, and I was never told. And now they have merged with their Biju, making them Hanyu. Not only that, but Fu made Shino her king." Naruto laughed and said, "That's right, Kurenai-san. You had better keep training because before long, they are all going to surpass you because I suspect that Chome will be teaching Fu and Shino and Matabi will be teaching Yugito. So you better get to work. I would also like to propose that our teams meet every once in a while to do joint training. Hina-chan and I would like to get to know our fellow Hanyu better, and what better way is there to do that than to spar? Also, I don't think that you will need to administer the test anymore, since all Hanyu are naturally linked to each other since there are so few of us, and the main idea of the test was to test teamwork, right?" Kurenai nodded and said, "Very well, you are all dismissed. I take it that you all need to buy new clothes, so go do that. Shino, I think that you should ask your father if Fu can stay with your clan. Once you explain what happened, I'm sure that he will be happy to oblige, if Fu's aura doesn't get to him first." Shino nodded and the pair walked towards the nearest clothing shop. Kurenai then headed home, leaving Naruto, Hinata and Yugito. Hinata then asked Yugito, "So where are you living at?" "I'm living in an old rundown apartment that the Hokage gave me. He tried to give me better, but the council wouldn't allow it." Hinata was saddened to hear that and said, "Why don't you come live with Naruto and me in our compound as a guest? We have plenty of space, and it gets a bit lonely with it just being us in there. Since you are a fellow Hanyu, you're practically our sister already." Yugito was shocked at Hinata's offer and said, "I'm honored that you would even consider letting me into your estate, especially since I am from another village. But I feel as though I would betray your trust if I took up on your offer without telling you why I was sent here. Kumo sent me as a spy to find a Hyuga that we could capture during the upcoming Chunin exams. I told them to target you Hinata, as you always appeared to be so weak in the academy. I was definitely wrong. Hinata just giggled and said, I knew that Kumo would probably try to take me during the exams. They already tried to capture me once before when I was 3. This time they will be in for one hell of a surprise. Besides, my Naruto-kun will be targeted by anybody who is from Iwa once they find out his last name. They will probably target me too now that I think about it. But we will be prepared, and they won't know what hit them. So while I thank you for telling us that, the information is sort of useless. But my offer still stands. You are a sister to us, and we have seen that you are a good person. After all, you were only following your orders. Yugito was practically moved to tears by what Hinata said, and she said, I would be honored to take up on your offer, my sister. But before we head home, can we go shopping first? I need to get new clothes. With that, the 3 left to go shopping.